Quit yapping back there!
And what's got bro down?
Check your vibes.
Kingdom Come Deliverance. Kingdom Come Deliverance is like stepping into a medieval history book if that book also let you sword fight, drink too much mead, and occasionally get arrested for stealing a chicken. It's an RPG that's unapologetically realistic, throwing magic and fantasy out the window to focus on gritty, grounded gameplay that makes you feel like you've actually time traveled to 1400s Bohemia. You play as Henry, a blacksmith's son who gets caught up in the chaos of a civil war after his village is brutally attacked. Unlike most RPGs, you don't start as a powerful chosen one, you're just a regular guy trying to survive, learn, and make something of yourself. And that's where Kingdom Come shines. It's not about being a hero right away, it's about earning it. The gameplay is all about realism, and that's where the addiction creeps in. Combat, for example, is like learning a martial art. It's not a button-mashing free-for-all, it's precise, tactical, and incredibly satisfying once you get the hang of it. Sword fights are intense duels where timing, positioning, and stamina matter way more than spamming attacks. The same goes for the rest of the game. Everything from alchemy to lockpicking requires actual skill and practice. Want to brew a potion? You'll be grinding herbs, lighting fires, and following detailed instructions like you're in chemistry class. It's challenging, sure, but it makes every success feel earned, and that's where the addiction kicks in. And let's not forget the world. Bohemia is stunning with rolling hills, dense forests, and charming little villages that feel alive with detail. The NPCs go about their daily lives working, eating, sleeping, and your actions affect how they see you. Steal too much and people will avoid you. Get in a brawl at the tavern and your reputation might take a hit. It's all about immersion. The story is another highlight. Henry's journey from a clueless villager to a key player in a political conflict is deeply personal, and the historical setting adds layers of intrigue. You're not just fighting for glory, you're navigating real-world issues like religion, class, and survival in a harsh, unforgiving time. Kingdom Come Deliverance is the kind of game that rewards patience and attention to detail. It's not here to hold your hand or spoon-feed you progress. Instead, it drops you into its world and says, figure it out. And when you do, man, is it rewarding. If you're into RPGs that break the mold and demand your focus, this one will keep you hooked for weeks. Just be prepared for a steep learning curve and maybe keep a chicken or two out of Henry's reach. Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15 is the RPG that asks, what if saving the world also felt like a road trip with your best bros? It's a bold, emotional, and sometimes quirky departure from the series' classic formula, but it works and it'll hook you in with its mix of heartfelt story, epic battles, and an open world begging to be explored. The story puts you in the shoes of Noctis, a prince on a journey to reclaim his kingdom and fulfill his destiny. But here's the twist, it's not just about the epic battles or political intrigue, though those are there. At its heart, Final Fantasy 15 is about friendship. Noctis and his three companions, Gladio, Ignis, and Prompto, are more than just party members. They're your family, your support system, and the banter between them adds a layer of humanity that's rare in games. Whether they're arguing over campfire meals or cracking jokes during a fight, these moments make the game feel real. Now, the world, it's massive, stunning, and alive. From lush forests to sprawling deserts and bustling towns, EOS is a joy to explore. You'll spend a lot of time in your car, the iconic regalia cruising down highways, blasting tunes from Final Fantasy soundtracks, and soaking in the vibe. It's oddly relaxing, and the journey feels as important as the destination. Combat is where things get fast and flashy. It's an action-based system, so forget turn-based battles. This is all about warp strikes, dodges, and chaining combos with your squad. It's chaotic in the best way, and every encounter feels like a cinematic brawl. Plus, the game throws in giant, jaw-dropping boss fights that will have you gripping your controller for dear life. What keeps you addicted, though, is how Final Fantasy 15 balances its tone. One moment you're fishing or taking goofy selfies with Prompto, and the next you're dealing with loss, duty, and the weight of Noctis' role as king. The game isn't afraid to get emotional, and by the time the credits roll, you'll probably need a minute to collect yourself. Oh, and the food. Weird thing to mention, right? But Ignis's cooking deserves its own shout out. The meals look so good, they'll make you hungry in real life, and they give you buffs that make gameplay even more strategic. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is like finding an underrated gem in a treasure chest full of AAA games. It might not have the same big name clout as other RPGs, but what it does have is a world that's a joy to explore, a combat system that's ridiculously fun, and a story that lets you decide how it all plays out. It's the kind of game that grabs you for just a quick session and then eats your entire weekend. The setup is classic RPG goodness. You're the Fateless One, brought back to life with no memory but a newfound ability to change destiny itself. It sounds dramatic, and it is, but what makes it awesome is how much freedom this premise gives you. Want to be a stealthy rogue who pickpockets townsfolk? A mage summoning meteors from the sky? A warrior smashing enemies with a hammer the size of a wagon? Amalur says, go nuts. Combat is where this game shines. It's fast, flashy, and more action-packed than most RPGs. Think combo heavy fights with swords, spells, and abilities that make every encounter feel like a mini spectacle. Oh, and the Reckoning mode? Absolute chaos in the best way. You slow down time, wreck everything in your path, and finish enemies off with over-the-top moves that make you feel unstoppable. The world of Amalur is massive and dripping with lore thanks to R.A. Salvatore, the legendary fantasy author who wrote the game's backstory. It's got everything: vibrant forests, eerie caves, sprawling cities, and enough side quests to keep you busy for weeks. The art style leans colorful and slightly cartoony, but it works, making the game feel like a living, breathing fantasy novel. What keeps you addicted though is the freedom. The skill tree system lets you mix and match abilities from 3 main classes: might, finesse, and sorcery, so you can create a playstyle that's all your own. And because you can respect your character at any time, there's zero pressure to stick with your initial choices. Experimentation is half the fun. The story itself might not blow your mind, but the way it unfolds through your choices, actions, and the paths you take makes it engaging. The factions in particular offer some of the best quest lines, diving deep into the politics and drama of this beautifully messy world. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is the kind of RPG that might fly under your radar, but once you start playing, you'll wonder how you missed it. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, it just wants to give you an amazing, customizable fantasy adventure, and it delivers. If you're looking for a game that's equal parts addictive combat, deep customization, and pure fun, Amalur might just become your next obsession. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt isn't just an RPG, it's the RPG. This is the game that sets the gold standard for storytelling, world building, and just straight up addictive gameplay. Once you start playing, it's not a question of if you'll get hooked, it's when. You play as Geralt of Rivia, a grizzled monster hunter with a gravelly voice and a knack for getting caught up in everyone else's problems. The main story has you searching for your adopted daughter Ciri, who's being chased by the Wild Hunt, a terrifying otherworldly force. But honestly, the side quests are where this game blows your mind. Every little task, from helping a widow find closure to deciding the fate of an entire village, is packed with choices, consequences, and weight. Nothing feels like filler. The world of The Witcher 3 is massive and stunning, from the war-torn plains of Velen to the bustling streets of Novigrad and the windswept isles of Skellige. Everywhere you go, the game oozes atmosphere. NPCs aren't just window dressing, they have lives, conversations, and problems that make the world feel alive. Even just riding your trusty horse roach across the countryside is an experience, especially when a random contract or hidden treasure pops up along the way. Combat is all about preparation and precision. Geralt isn't a tank. You've got to think on your feet, using potions, oils, and your 2 swords, one for humans, one for monsters to stay alive. And then there's magic or signs, which give you an extra edge in fights. Whether you're setting enemies on fire or casting a shield to block incoming attacks, Every battle feels tactical and satisfying. What truly sets The Witcher 3 apart though is how it respects your time. Your actions have real, lasting consequences, and the game doesn't shy away from tough choices. It's not about being the good guy or the bad guy, it's about living with the decisions you make, and the game never lets you off easy. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a masterpiece, whether it's the jaw-dropping visuals, the unforgettable characters, or the sheer depth of the world. It's the kind of game that stays with you long after the credits roll. If you somehow haven't played it yet, stop what you're doing and dive in. Just be ready to lose yourself in one of the greatest RPGs ever made. Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk is the RPG that takes you on a wild, neon-drenched ride through the gritty streets of Night City, a place where dreams are bought, sold, and shattered in the blink of an eye. It's ambitious, chaotic, and when it hits its stride, incredibly addictive. You play as V, a mercenary caught up in a tangled web of corporate greed, street-level crime, and a haunting digital ghost, Johnny Silverhand, a rebellious rock star played to perfection by Keanu Reeves. The core story has you hunting for a way to save your life after a rogue biochip embeds Johnny in your brain, but the magic of Cyberpunk 2077 is in how it lets you shape your journey. Are you a slick-talking corpo, a street-smart nomad, or a wild outlaw from the Badlands? Your choices define your version of V. Night City itself is a character, a sprawling metropolis that feels alive with its buzzing markets, neon-lit skyscrapers, and shady alleys full of danger and opportunity. Whether you're cruising down highways on a sleek bike or walking through packed city streets, there's always something catching your eye. And the side quests? Some of the best in the genre. They're not just distractions, they're personal stories that often rival the main plot in depth and emotional payoff.
Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise.
Combat is where the game opens up. It's fast, frenetic, and incredibly customizable. Want to be a stealthy hacker who disables enemies from a distance? You can. Prefer to go full Terminator with cybernetic blades and explosive guns? Totally an option. The upgrades and mods you apply to your body feel tangible, turning you into a walking weapon. And the boss fights? Oh man, they're as intense as they are creative. But let's talk characters, because Cyberpunk 2077 absolutely nails them. From Judy, the empathetic brainless tech, to Panem, the no-nonsense nomad with a heart of gold, every ally you meet feels layered and real. Even Johnny Silverhand, as chaotic and stubborn as he is, will grow on you over time. The relationships you build aren't just side notes, they're core to the experience. What keeps you hooked, though, is how the game balances its freedom and intensity. You can spend hours exploring the city, hacking terminals, and picking fights with gangs, or dive headfirst into the story's emotional gut punches. Every mission offers a mix of action, dialogue, and decision-making that keeps you constantly engaged. Sure, Cyberpunk 2077 had a rough launch, but in its current state, it's finally living up to its potential. It's sleek, stylish, and dripping with the kind of personality that makes it unforgettable. If you're ready for an RPG that blends heart-pounding action with a deeply personal narrative, Night City is waiting. Just remember, once you step in, it's hard to leave. No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is the RPG that takes the word freedom and cranks it to the max. It's not just a game, it's an infinite universe waiting to be explored, where every star in the sky leads to a planet you can visit. And once you dive in, it's hard not to get completely hooked on the endless possibilities. You start as a lone traveler, waking up on a random, procedurally generated planet with a busted ship and a galaxy-sized to-do list. The story, while not the main draw, teases you with mysteries about an ancient race and the true purpose of the universe. But really, No Man's Sky is about making your own adventure. Want to be an intergalactic trader? A fearless explorer cataloging alien life? A space pirate raiding unsuspecting freighters? The game lets you live your sci-fi dreams. The addiction factor kicks in with the sheer variety. Every planet you visit is unique, from lush, colorful paradises to harsh, radioactive wastelands. The game's procedural generation means you never know what's around the corner, an alien species you've never seen before, a massive cave system hiding rare resources, or a stunning vista that feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi art book. The sense of discovery is unmatched. And then there's the progression. You're constantly upgrading your ship, your exosuit, and your multi-tool, which feels super rewarding as you tackle tougher challenges. Mining resources, crafting gear, and trading at space stations might sound like busy work, but it's surprisingly addictive when you're chasing that next big upgrade or rare find. What really makes No Man's Sky stand out though is how far it's come since launch. This isn't the same game it was in 2016. It's been expanded and improved so much that it's almost unrecognizable. From massive freighters to underwater exploration to full-on base building, the updates have turned it into one of the most robust and satisfying RPGs out there. No Man's Sky is the ultimate chill RPG. It's a game you can sink hours into, whether you're hunting down a rare ship, building a dream base, or just flying through the stars with no particular destination in mind. If you've ever wanted to lose yourself in a universe where the possibilities feel endless, this is the one. Just be ready to look up at the clock and realize hours have disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yakuza Like a Dragon. Yakuza Like a Dragon is the RPG that takes the chaos and heart of the Yakuza series and flips the script in the best way possible. It's part street brawler, part turn-based RPG, and 100% pure fun. If you've ever wondered what would happen if you combined classic JRPG mechanics with the quirky, over-the-top energy of the Yakuza series, this is your answer. The story follows Ichiban Kasuga, a former low-level Yakuza with a heart of gold and a wild mop of hair, who gets betrayed by his family and left for dead. Instead of succumbing to despair, Ichiban decides to fight his way back up, forming a ragtag team of unlikely allies along the way. It's a classic underdog tale with that signature Yakuza blend of humor and heartfelt moments that'll have you laughing 1 minute and tearing up the next. What sets Like a Dragon apart is its combat system. Gone are the series' traditional beat-em-up mechanics. Instead, you get full-on turn-based RPG battles. It sounds risky, but it works so well. Each character has a job. I think RPG classes ranging from bodyguard to chef to literal pop idol, and their moves are as wild as they sound. Throwing pigeons at enemies, smacking someone with a giant sign, summoning a crawfish to fight for you. Yeah, it's that kind of game. The city of Yokohama is your playground, and it's packed with side quests, minigames, and enough distractions to keep you entertained for hours. From managing a business empire to racing go-karts in the streets, there's always something ridiculous and fun to do. And of course there's karaoke, because no Yakuza game would be complete without it. What really makes the game addictive though is the cast. Ichiban's crew, Namba, Saiko, Adachi, and others are some of the most lovable characters in any RPG. Their bond feels genuine, and the way they support each other through thick and thin is the emotional core of the game. Every party conversation, side story, and group meal makes you feel like you're part of their family. And let's not forget the story. It's a roller coaster of twists, betrayals, and heartfelt moments with a final act that will leave you absolutely floored. The game juggles its goofy humor and serious drama perfectly, and it all comes together in a way that's uniquely Yakuza.
Young master? Young master!
Yakuza Like a Dragon is a bold reinvention that doesn't just work, it shines. It's hilarious, emotional, and endlessly entertaining with a combat system that's as fresh as it is fun. Whether you're a longtime fan of the series or diving in for the first time, this is one RPG you won't be able to put down. Ichiban might not be Kiryu, but trust me, he'll win you over in no time. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Skyrim isn't just a game, it's a cultural phenomenon. Whether you're diving in for the first time or returning for the 10th re-release, this RPG is the ultimate sandbox of swords, dragons, and endless possibilities. It's the kind of game where you sit down to complete one quest, and suddenly it's 4 hours later, and you've accidentally become the leader of the Thieves Guild. The setup, you're the Dragonborn, a chosen hero destined to stop a world-ending threat. But let's be real, the main story is just the tip of the iceberg. The magic of Skyrim Skyrim is how it lets you completely ignore that destiny if you want to. You can become an assassin for the Dark Brotherhood, master magic at the College of Winterhold, or even just buy a house and live the simple life of a smith or farmer. The freedom is ridiculous in the best way. The world itself is massive. From snowy mountain peaks to dense forests and sprawling plains, Skyrim is a place you want to explore every inch of. It's packed with caves, ruins, and secrets so many that even after hundreds of hours, you'll still stumble across something new. And then there's the dragons. The first time one swoops down from the sky while you're wandering, absolutely unforgettable. Combat is a mix of magic, melee, and ranged options, and it's all about how you want to play. Want to dual wield swords and go berserk? Do it. Prefer sneaking through dungeons with a bow? Totally viable. Or maybe you want to hurl fireballs at everything in sight? It's all on the table. The skill system rewards your playstyle, letting you level up whatever you use most, so no two characters ever feel the same. And let's talk mods. One of Skyrim's greatest strengths is its modding community. From simple graphical updates to entirely new quests, towns, and characters, mods can turn Skyrim into whatever you want it to be. Want to fight as Batman? Ride Thomas the Tank Engine instead of a dragon? Sure, why not? The possibilities are endless. But what keeps players hooked years after release is the immersion. The game doesn't just give you a world, it gives you a life within it. You're not just playing as the Dragonborn, you're shaping your own story. Every choice you make, every guild you join, every house you build, it all feels personal. Skyrim isn't just an RPG, it's an escape. Whether you're a completionist chasing every quest or someone who just loves wandering aimlessly in a beautiful world, it's a game that you'll keep coming back to. It's timeless, endlessly replayable, and if you somehow never played it, what are you waiting for? The dragons are calling. Dishonored. Dishonored is one of those games that grabs you right out of the gate. The world, the story, the powers, it all clicks almost immediately, and before you know it, you're deep in the grimy streets of Dunwall plotting your next move. You play as Corvo Attano, a bodyguard framed for the murder of the Empress, and from the first few minutes, the game throws you into a tense world of betrayal, revenge, and political intrigue. What really hooks you is the freedom it gives. After the intro, it's like, here's the mission, now figure it out, and that's where the obsession starts. Do you sneak through a guard's window, choke out every enemy, and leave without a trace? Or do you go in loud, summoning rats and blasting everyone in your way? The game doesn't judge, it lets you approach missions however you want, and experimenting with different playstyles is half the fun. The powers are where Dishonored really shines. Blink is probably the coolest ability right off the bat. It's this short-range teleport that lets you zip around rooftops, through windows, or past guards in an instant. Once you get the hang of it, it feels like you're gliding through the game. But there's more. You can summon swarms of rats, possess people and animals, or even stop time entirely. And the best part, you can combine these abilities in creative ways to make every encounter feel unique. Then there's the world. Dunwall is dark, oppressive, and fascinating. It's got this Victorian steampunk vibe with towering buildings, plague-ridden streets, and hidden secrets everywhere. You'll find yourself going off the beaten path just to explore and see what you can uncover. The game rewards curiosity, whether it's a hidden rune to upgrade your abilities or a side story tucked away in a journal entry. The story pulls you in too. It's not just about getting revenge, it's about choices. Do you spare your enemies or take them out? Every decision has consequences, not just for you but for the world around you. The more chaos you cause, the darker the world becomes, and it all builds toward different endings based on how you played. Nier Automata. Nier Automata doesn't waste any time pulling you in, it grabs you with its unique mix of gameplay and storytelling, and before you realize it, you're completely hooked. At first it feels like you're just in for a stylish action game, but it quickly reveals there's so much more going on. You play as 2B, a stoic android sent to Earth to fight against alien machines, but within the first hour, it's clear this isn't your typical sci-fi story. What gets you obsessed early on is the way the game constantly shifts genres. One moment you're hacking and slashing enemies in fast-paced combat, and the next the game turns into a top-down shooter or side-scroller, it keeps things fresh and makes every section feel exciting like you never know what's coming next. But it's not just about variety, it's how seamlessly everything flows together. Whether you're in a massive boss fight or just gliding across the ruins of Earth, it all feels natural. The combat, powered by Platinum Games, is smooth as hell. You're dodging, slashing, and unleashing powerful combos with the help of your little floating pod companion. The learning curve feels just right. You start with basic attacks, but as you unlock more weapons and abilities, the combat opens up in crazy ways. And it's not just about raw power, there's a rhythm to the fights that makes every encounter feel like a dance. Once it clicks, it's incredibly addictive. What really sets Nier Automata apart though is the way it tells its story. You're given just enough in that first hour to intrigue you. Who are these androids? What's up with these weird machines? Why does everything feel off? But it holds back just enough that you have to keep playing to get the answers, and trust me, the story only gets deeper and more emotional the further you go. Then, there's the world itself, hauntingly beautiful in its emptiness. You'll explore decaying cities overtaken by nature, abandoned amusement parks, and eerie forests, all while trying to figure out what happened to humanity. It feels lonely but peaceful, and the soundtrack, holy hell, it's breathtaking. The music is woven into every moment, shifting dynamically to match the mood, making exploration feel both meditative and emotional. Within that first hour, Nier Automata gets its hooks in by making you feel like you're part of something much bigger. It doesn't bombard you with exposition, it lets the mysteries unfold slowly, pushing you forward with curiosity and emotional weight. And as you soon discover, finishing the game once isn't really the end, it's just the beginning of something much bigger. This is the kind of game that stays in your head, making you think about its themes, purpose, identity, and what it means to be alive long after you put the controller down. And once you're hooked, good luck putting it down. Nier Automata isn't just a game, it's an experience that sticks with you. The Talos Principle. The Talos Principle is one of those games that sneaks up on you. You start it thinking, okay, cool, a puzzle game with robots, and before you know it, you're deep into philosophical questions about consciousness, existence, and what it means to be human. It hooks you within the first hour, not just with clever puzzles, but with a sense that there's something bigger going on beneath the surface. At first, it's simple. You're placed in these serene, open environments, ancient ruins, lush forests, and deserted temples tasked with solving puzzles using tools like lasers, connectors, and pressure plates. The puzzles start easy enough to get you comfortable, but before long, the game challenges you to think in new ways. Each solution feels satisfying, and figuring out the trick to a particularly tricky one will have you grinning like a fool. It's a game that makes you feel smart without being too punishing. But what really makes the Talos Principle special is the atmosphere. While you're solving puzzles, this voice Elohim guides you, presenting himself as your creator. At first it's soothing, almost like a mentor, but the more you play, the more questions creep in. Why are you solving these puzzles? What are you? Why does this idyllic world feel off? And that's when the game starts messing with your head in the best way possible.
Curiosity. Our mythologies are full of...
The puzzles are great, but it's this blend of gameplay and philosophy that grabs you. Every time you unlock a new area or solve a puzzle, you feel like you're peeling back another layer of the world's mystery. It's not just about getting to the end, it's about figuring out what the hell is really going on and what role you play in it. The beauty of the Talos Principle is that it doesn't rush you. It lets you explore, think, and piece things together at your own pace. Before you know it, you'll be obsessed not just with solving the puzzles, but with uncovering the truth of the world. And when the game finally pulls back the curtain and hits you with the big questions, you'll be thinking about it long after the credits roll. If you're into games that challenge both your brain and your worldview, the Talos Principle will get under your skin in the best way possible. It's not just a puzzle game, it's a journey through ideas, and once it grabs you, it won't let go. The Evil Within 2. The evil within 2 pulls you in right from the start, and before you know it, you're way too deep to back out. It's a survival horror game, but it's not just about creepy monsters or jump scares, it's about making you feel like you're always on edge, like things could fall apart at any second. You play as Sebastian Castellanos, a detective who's seen some seriously messed up stuff. This time, he's on a mission to rescue his daughter, who's trapped inside a simulated nightmare world called STEM. And yeah, it gets weird fast. What makes the evil within 2 so addictive is the balance between freedom and fear. Unlike the first game, which was pretty linear, this one opens things up. It's not a full-on open world, but the sandbox-like areas give you a lot more room to explore. You can sneak through abandoned neighborhoods, scavenge supplies, or stumble into side quests that make the world feel more alive. But here's the catch: you never feel safe. Even when you're just walking down a street, there's this constant tension that something awful could jump out at you. The combat feels tight, limited ammo, enemies that can overwhelm you if you're not careful, and every shot feeling like it counts. But it's not just about blasting your way through everything. A lot of the time, sneaking around and picking off enemies one by one feels like the smarter play. You can set traps, use distractions, or just try to avoid fights altogether. And when things do go sideways, the game keeps you on your toes. You'll end up in those moments where you're sprinting through alleyways, desperately hoping you've got enough stamina to outrun whatever's chasing you. What really makes this game work is the personal story underneath all the horror. Sebastian isn't just dealing with monsters, he's wrestling with guilt, loss, and trauma, and the whole journey is about him trying to piece himself back together while searching for his daughter. It's more emotional than you'd expect, and there are moments where the game genuinely hits you in the feels right when you're least expecting it. And man, the monsters in this game are nightmare fuel. They're not just creepy, they're unsettling in a way that sticks with you. You've got twisted humanoid creatures, bizarre abominations, and boss fights that feel like they've been pulled straight out of your worst dreams. Every encounter feels unique, and the designs are weird enough to make you stop and think, what the hell am I even looking at? The pacing is on point too. The game knows when to crank up the tension with a big encounter and when to slow things down, giving you time to explore, gather resources, and catch your breath just before throwing you back into the madness. It's a perfect blend of action, horror, and exploration, and it keeps you glued to the screen the whole time. Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds is one of those games that feels like magic the moment you step into it. It doesn't hold your hand or bombard you with objectives, it just says, here's a spaceship, go explore, and that's all it takes to suck you in. You play as an astronaut from a small alien race setting out to explore your solar system, but pretty soon you realize there's way more going on than you expected. There's mystery, there's awe, and without giving too much away, there's a time loop. Yeah, things get wild. The obsession kicks in fast because the game taps into that pure curiosity. You hop into your rickety little spaceship, pick a planet, and just go. Every location feels handcrafted, and every place you land has something strange or beautiful waiting for you, whether it's a massive storm, ancient ruins, or a planet that's slowly falling apart in real time. And the best part, you never know what you're going to find. That sense of discovery is so addictive, and the game doesn't tell you where to go or what to do, you figure it all out on your own. The time loop mechanic is genius. Every 22 minutes, the sun goes supernova and everything resets. At first, it feels like a gimmick, like, oh cool, a Groundhog Day thing, but as you explore, you realize that each loop is part of the puzzle. Every piece of knowledge you gain, like how to open a certain door or avoid a deadly hazard, sticks with you, and you start connecting the dots across planets, piecing together this massive cosmic mystery. It's not about grinding stats or gear, it's about understanding, and when things finally start to click, it's one of the most satisfying feelings in gaming. The coolest part of Outer Wilds is how it's not about winning, it's about learning. The entire solar system is like one big interconnected puzzle, and every discovery opens up new questions. Every loop is a chance to learn a little more, to get a little closer to the truth, and the mystery at the heart of the game is so compelling that you have to see it through. The Outer Worlds.
Back to the sun.
Alright, here we go. Now these both games are very similar, so I would like to mention Outer Worlds too. Let's see, the Outer Worlds pulls you in fast, especially if you love the idea of exploring space as a sarcastic, morally questionable protagonist. It's like someone took the best parts of Fallout and Mass Effect, sprinkled in some dark humor, and said, go wild you wake up from cryosleep to find yourself stuck in a corporate-controlled galaxy where everything from healthcare to space travel is run by greedy companies. What you do next, that's entirely up to you. Right from the first hour, you realize this game is all about choices, big ones, small ones, weird ones. It doesn't care if you want to be a hero, a chaotic jerk, or just someone trying to get by. You can talk your way out of most situations, shoot your way through them, or even lie and manipulate your way to success. And every decision has consequences that feel meaningful. Side with the corporation and the people might hate you. Help a struggling colony and the corporations might send assassins after you. It makes every dialogue choice feel weighty, and you'll quickly get obsessed with seeing how things play out. The world building is another hook. Each planet and space station feels distinct, filled with quirky characters and little stories that flesh out the galaxy's corporate dystopia. You'll run into people complaining about the absurd rules of their employers, like getting fined for dying on the job, or NPCs that are so deep into company propaganda they think vacation is a myth. It's hilarious, but also unsettling, like the satire hits a little too close to home. And let's talk about the companions. The game nails that aspect. Every character you recruit has their own backstory, opinions, and loyalty quests. They feel like actual people with thoughts and quirks, not just walking weapons. Parvati, for example, is a shy engineer with one of the most wholesome personal storylines you'll find in any RPG. The way they interact with you and with each other makes you actually care about who's in your party, and it's fun to see them react to the choices you make.
I know my G-valves from my catalyzers, and I can keep your ship singing.
Combat is solid and flexible. You've got a mix of guns, melee weapons, and special abilities with enough variety to keep things interesting. Plus, the TTT Tactical Time Dilation system lets you slow down time and target specific enemy parts for critical effects, shooting someone's leg to make them stumble or blasting their weapon right out of their hand. You can build your character however you want, whether you focus on sneaky critical hits, persuasive dialogue, or just pure firepower. What really makes the Outer Worlds stand out is that it respects your time. It's not this endless grind with a massive open world. Each location is dense with things to do, but it never feels bloated. The pacing is tight, the quests are meaningful, and it knows when to wrap things up. If you're someone who loves RPGs that let you shape the story and character in wild ways, The Outer Worlds is an easy obsession. One minute you're debating morality with your crew, the next you're blasting through bandits on a lawless asteroid, and the choices you make along the way, they'll keep you thinking long after you put the controller down. Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest isn't just a game, it's an emotional journey wrapped in some of the most beautiful art and music you'll ever experience. From the moment you dive into it, the world pulls you in with its stunning visuals, heartfelt story, and tight platforming that'll have you hooked within the first hour. But fair warning, this one hits hard. It's one of those games that makes you feel something deep before you've even gotten used to the controls. You play as Ori, a little guardian spirit, in a forest that's been devastated by a terrible storm. The whole game is about restoring life to the forest, but it's not just about running through beautiful scenery, it's about overcoming obstacles, making tough jumps, and figuring out how to move forward when everything seems stacked against you. The platforming is tight and responsive, which makes every leap and wall climb feel like a small victory. And when you finally pull off that perfect sequence of moves, it feels amazing. But it's not just the mechanics that keep you hooked, it's the feels. Right off the bat, Ori and the Blind Forest hits you with an emotional gut punch that sets the tone for the rest of the game. There's very little dialogue, but the story is told through beautiful animations and music that somehow manage to say more than words ever could. You'll find yourself emotionally invested in Ori's journey, rooting for this little spirit to save the forest, even when the odds seem impossible. The visuals are on another level. Every inch of the game looks like a painting in motion, with glowing forests, misty swamps, and eerie caverns that feel alive. Each new area feels distinct and handcrafted, inviting you to explore every corner. and exploration is a huge part of the game. There are secret areas, upgrades, and collectibles tucked away in every nook and cranny. The more you explore, the stronger Ori becomes, which makes revisiting old areas with new abilities super satisfying. The game isn't easy though. The platforming challenges ramp up fast, and there are sections where you'll be retrying a lot, especially during escape sequences that demand quick reflexes and perfect timing. But here's the thing, it never feels frustrating. Every death is a lesson, and when you finally nail that tricky jump or outrun that rising water, it feels like a genuine achievement. The game respects your time, making every challenge rewarding without dragging things out. Deus Ex Human Revolution. Deus Ex Human Revolution hooks you almost immediately with its slick, futuristic vibe and the feeling that every decision you make matters. It's part RPG, part first-person shooter, and part immersive sim, and the way it blends all that together makes it hard to put down once you start. You play as Adam Jensen, a former cop turned security specialist who gets augmented with cybernetic implants after a brutal attack leaves him barely alive. From that moment, you're thrown into a world full of conspiracies, shady corporations, and questions about what it means to be human. What gets you obsessed fast is the sheer freedom the game gives you. Every mission feels like a puzzle with multiple solutions, and how you approach it is entirely up to you. You can hack your way through locked doors, crawl through vents, talk your way past guards, or just go in guns blazing. The game doesn't force you down any particular path. Whether you play it stealthy or loud, everything feels viable, and it's super satisfying to figure out the approach that works best for you. The augmentations are a game changer, literally. As you level up, you unlock all kinds of abilities like cloaking, enhanced hacking, and strength upgrades that let you punch through walls. But you can't unlock everything, so you have to build Jensen in a way that matches your playstyle. Will you be a master hacker, slipping through systems and avoiding fights? Or do you want to upgrade your combat skills and take down enemies with brutal efficiency? The choice is yours, and the game does a great job of making every choice feel meaningful. And man, the world building is top tier. The game is set in the near future where cybernetic augmentation is becoming mainstream, but not without controversy. Some people see it as the next step in human evolution, while others think it's a dangerous step toward inequality and corporate control. The cities you explore, like Detroit and Hengsha, feel alive with detail, and you'll find newspapers, emails, and conversations that give you insight into the social and political tensions brewing beneath the surface. It's not just window dressing, it pulls you deeper into the story and makes the world feel believable. The story itself is packed with intrigue. As Jensen, you're trying to figure out who attacked your company and why, but as you dig deeper, you uncover layers of conspiracies that tie into global events. There are no simple villains here. Everyone you meet has their own motivations, and the game forces you to make tough decisions that have real consequences. The dialogue system is fantastic too. You can talk your way out of confrontations, but only if you pick the right responses based on what you've learned about the person you're speaking to. And the game's vibe, it's got that perfect cyberpunk aesthetic, lots of black and gold, neon signs, rain-soaked streets, and high-tech gadgets everywhere. The soundtrack is moody and atmospheric, giving every moment this sense of tension, whether you're sneaking through a corporate facility or just exploring the streets. L.A Noire.
I'm not lying! She got up and left! That was it!
Man, L.A Noire is one of those games that pulls you in before you even realize what's happening. You play as Cole Phelps, a World War II veteran turned detective, working your way through the ranks of the LAPD in 1947 Los Angeles. But it's not just another open-world crime game, it's all about piecing together clues, interrogating suspects, and solving cases. Think of it like a detective drama where every little detail matters. And yeah, it can be slow at times, but that's part of what makes it so damn immersive. The first thing that'll hook you is the vibe. The game nails that post-war, noir atmosphere, the jazz music, the trench coats, the cigarette smoke, and the way the sun sets overlays grimy streets. It's like stepping into an old-school detective movie. Every corner of the city feels alive, whether it's the busy streets, shady bars, or crime scenes you stumble upon. It's not just the setting, it's the little things. You'll drive through neighborhoods with 1940s radio tunes playing in the background, and it feels real in a way most games don't capture. The cases are what really draw you in. You'll start start small, handling things like petty thefts and hit and runs, but before long, you're thrown into murder investigations and tangled conspiracies. Each case plays out like an episode of a detective show. You visit crime scenes, gather evidence, question witnesses, and try to figure out what the hell really happened. The interrogations. Those are the heart of the game. You'll sit across from suspects, watch their facial expressions closely, and decide if they're telling the truth or hiding something. And man, the motion capture is crazy good. You can see every little twitch and nervous glance, and it makes you feel like a real detective trying to read people.
Give me something, Velasco, or I'll take you back to the cells and tell the whole station you're a child molester. How long do you think you'll last?
Okay, I hear you.
But here's the thing you're gonna screw up. Sometimes you'll think you've nailed someone in a lie, only for the game to say, nope, wrong call, and when you get it wrong, it hurts like you just let a criminal walk free. But that's what makes it so engaging. It's not about always being right, it's about learning from your mistakes and getting better at reading people and piecing things together. It gives the whole game this trial and error feeling that's frustrating in the best way. The story gets surprisingly deep too. Phelps isn't just a cookie-cutter hero, he's complicated, and as you progress, you start peeling back layers of his past. The more you climb the ranks, the messier things get. The game isn't afraid to dive into some dark themes, from police corruption to post-war trauma, and as much as you're trying to do good, it becomes pretty clear that not everything is as black and white as it seems. And yeah, the open world isn't as packed with stuff to do as other games, but honestly, that's not the point. It's more about the experience, driving to crime scenes, chatting with your partner, and soaking in that noir atmosphere. The pacing is slow, but it works. It gives you time to think, to put pieces together, and really get into the mindset of a detective. Immortals, Fenyx Rising. Immortals Fenyx Rising is like that surprise game you didn't expect to enjoy as much as you do. It's bright, funny, and packed with fun exploration that scratches that open world itch without overwhelming you. You play as Fenyx, a mortal suddenly caught in a god-sized mess involving Greek gods, legendary creatures, and way too much Zeus banter. Right from the start, it's clear this game isn't taking itself too seriously, and that's what makes it so refreshing. The gameplay feels smooth and easy to get into. Think Breath of the Wild, but with a bit more flair. There's climbing, gliding, puzzle solving, and lots of combat. The puzzles, especially in the vaults of Tartaros, are surprisingly satisfying, plus the world is full of stuff to do: hidden treasures, epic fights, and mythological creatures waiting to get smacked around. The combat is fast and fun with a mix of sword strikes, bow shots, and special god powers, whether you're flinging enemies into the air with Ares' Wrath or hurling giant boulders at Cyclops. It always feels good. It's not the deepest combat system ever, but it keeps things light and engaging throughout. If you're looking for an open world game that's not a time sink but still offers great exploration, solid puzzles, and entertaining combat, Immortals Fenyx Rising is definitely worth checking out. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but damn, it's a good time. Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor hooks you fast. You play as Talion, a ranger fused with the spirit of an ancient elf lord, out for revenge against Sauron's forces in the gritty, brutal world of Middle-earth. Right from the start, the game makes it clear this isn't some slow build-up. It throws you into combat with orcs, gives you cool supernatural abilities, and sets you loose in an open world full of enemies waiting to get sliced apart. What really gets you obsessed is the Nemesis system. Every orc captain you encounter has a unique personality, strengths, and weaknesses, and if one kills you, they rise in power and remember you the next time you meet. It's personal, and it's brilliant. The system makes every fight feel like it matters. That one orc who somehow got lucky and killed you. Yeah, he'll taunt you the next time you see him, and beating him down will feel so good. Or maybe he escapes, ranks up again, and becomes your worst nightmare. The dynamic between you and these enemies makes every encounter exciting. Combat is fast and brutal, like a mix between Batman Arkham and Assassin's Creed. You'll counter, slash, and execute enemies with style. But it's not just about combat. You'll sneak through camps, dominate orcs to fight for you, and unlock new abilities that make you feel like a force of nature. It's the perfect balance between stealth, strategy, and pure chaos. The world itself isn't massive, but it's packed with things to do. Whether it's freeing slaves, hunting captains, or chasing down collectibles, there's always something that pulls you into the next objective. It nails that open world flow where you tell yourself, I'll just do this one thing, and suddenly hours have gone by. Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus pulls you in with its eerie atmosphere and never lets go. This time, the series moves beyond the claustrophobic tunnels of the Moscow Metro and drops you into the vast, ruined landscapes of post-apocalyptic Russia. You're still playing as Artyom, the quiet but determined survivor, but now you're leaving the underground behind, boarding a train called the Aurora, and setting off on a journey across the wasteland in search of a new life. The open environments are a huge shift from the tight corridors of previous Metro games, but the game still manages to keep that signature tension. Each region feels alive in its own terrifying way, frozen rivers, decaying factories, and eerie swamps, all filled with mutants, bandits, and environmental hazards. The world is beautiful in a bleak kind of way, and just wandering through it, scavenging for supplies while listening to the wind howl, gives you chills. The gameplay is a mix of survival and action. Every bullet counts, and your equipment is constantly on the verge of breaking down. You'll need to craft filters for your gas mask, clean your weapons to keep them functional, and make tough decisions about when to fight and when to sneak. It's not just about shooting, it's about surviving. Running out of supplies in the middle of nowhere isn't just a setback, it's terrifying. What really makes Exodus special is how it balances those big open spaces with personal story-driven moments. The Aurora isn't just a train, it's your home. You'll spend time with the crew between missions, sharing stories, learning about their struggles, and seeing their relationships evolve over the course of the journey. These quiet moments hit hard. They remind you that even in a world gone to hell, there's still hope in human connection. The game gives you a lot of freedom in how you approach things. Some sections let you go in guns blazing, but stealth often feels like the smarter choice. Your decisions matter, too, whether it's how you handle enemies or the way you treat your companions. Your choices shape the outcome of the story. It makes you feel like every action carries weight, and by the end, you'll be thinking about the consequences of what you did along the way. If you're into immersive, story-rich games that mix open exploration with tight, survival-based mechanics, Metro Exodus will keep you hooked. It's not just about escaping the horrors of the Metro, it's about finding something worth living for. And once you're on that train with Artyom and his crew, you won't want to get off until the very end. Batman Arkham Asylum. Batman Arkham Asylum grabs you the second you step through those gates. It's dark, atmospheric, and instantly makes you feel like the Dark Knight himself. This isn't just some superhero beat-em-up. It's a perfectly crafted experience that mixes stealth, exploration, and brutal combat, all wrapped in a story that pulls you deeper and deeper into Gotham's darkest corners. The setup is simple. The Joker has taken over Arkham Asylum, and every villain you can think of, from Harley Quinn to Killer Croc, is waiting to make your life hell. But instead of just throwing you into non-stop action, the game makes you think. You've got to outsmart enemies, use detective skills, and carefully plan your moves. Whether you're sneaking through vents, setting traps, or silently taking out thugs one by one, the gameplay makes you feel like Batman. The combat system is smooth and satisfying. It's all about timing, countering punches, dodging attacks, and unleashing a flow of perfectly executed combos. It looks simple at first, but as more enemies show up with weapons and shields, the challenge ramps up. And man, pulling off a chain of takedowns without getting hit feels so damn good. Arkham Asylum itself is practically a character in the game. The place is dripping with atmosphere, creepy hallways, eerie patient cells, and unsettling audio logs scattered throughout. It's not just a backdrop. Exploring the asylum reveals hidden lore and secrets about Gotham's rogues, giving you that I need to find everything feeling. The Metroidvania style layout means you'll revisit areas with new gadgets, slowly unlocking every part of the asylum until it feels like you own the place. Greedfall. Greedfall is one of those RPGs that feels like a hidden gem. It doesn't have the flash of a massive AAA game, but once you get into it, it hooks you with its world story and the freedom to shape your journey. You play as Desarde, a noble diplomat sent to a mysterious island to broker peace between colonists, native tribes, and rival factions, while also searching for a cure for a plague threatening your homeland. It's part political drama, part fantasy adventure, and the mix works surprisingly well. The combat and exploration feel familiar but solid. You've got swords, guns, magic, pick your playstyle and tweak it however you like. There's a bit of everything here, from melee brawls to casting spells, and even muskets for ranged combat. It's not the deepest system, but it's satisfying enough, especially when you upgrade your gear and abilities. Plus, the enemy variety keeps things interesting. You'll face everything from angry locals to massive mystical creatures lurking in the wilds. What really pulls you in though is the story and world building. The island of Tirfredi feels alive with factions, each with their own agendas and complex relationships. Your choices matter: how you approach diplomacy, who you ally with, and how you handle delicate situations all shape the story. It's not just about who you fight, it's about who you help, betray, or keep in your corner, and that makes every dialogue feel meaningful. The companions are another highlight. You'll recruit a mix of characters, each with their own personalities, backstories, and loyalties. They'll comment on your actions, argue with each other, and their loyalty can shift depending on how you treat them and what alliances you make. It's not just about throwing them into battle, they become part of your story, and getting to know them adds depth to the journey. If you're into RPGs where your choices shape the story, Greedfall will scratch that itch. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but it's a solid character-driven adventure with enough freedom and depth to keep you hooked. I think of it like a mix between Dragon Age and The Witcher, with a bit of colonial intrigue thrown in for good measure. It might not be perfect, but it's one of those games that sticks with you, and if you give it a chance, you'll find yourself pretty damn invested. Portal 2. Let's talk about Portal 2, a game that's not just a 10 out of 10, it's a genre-defining classic. If you haven't played it yet, what are you even doing? This game takes everything the original Portal did and cranks it up to 11. More puzzles, more story, more humor, it's the total package. So, you're back in the shoes of Chell, stuck in Aperture Science, trying to escape its creepy, crumbling halls. And yes, GLaDOS is back, and she's just as passive-aggressively evil as you remember. But this time, the story gets a whole new layer thanks to Wheatley, the hilariously clueless robot voiced by Stephen Merchant. Seriously, Wheatley steals the show. He's like that one friend who always thinks they know what they're doing but absolutely does not. The gameplay is of course centered around the iconic portal gun. You know the drill: blue portal, orange portal, and your brain working overtime to figure out how to use them to solve increasingly tricky puzzles. But what makes Portal 2 so brilliant is how it keeps introducing new mechanics. One moment you're bouncing on repulsion gel, the next you're speeding across propulsion gel, and then you're redirecting lasers or using light bridges. It's constantly surprising you, and it's all so well designed that every solution feels clever but never unfair.
Oh, no. I fizzled that one too.
The writing is also next level. The humor is razor sharp, from GLaDOS' sarcastic jabs to Wheatley's bumbling attempts to help, but what surprised me is how the game also builds on the lore of Aperture Science. You explore old, abandoned test chambers, hear recordings from Cave Johnson, and learn about the company's bizarre, shady history. Somehow, Portal 2 manages to balance humor with a touch of melancholy, making it feel way deeper than you'd expect. And let's not forget the co-op mode. Playing as the adorable robots Atlas and Peabody, you and a friend will face some of the trickiest puzzles in the game. It's the ultimate test of teamwork, or a great way to accidentally ruin friendships when someone totally misplaces their portal. Visually, the game holds up so well. The mix of sleek, futuristic test chambers and the overgrown, decaying areas of Aperture Science is still stunning. And the soundtrack? Perfect. It subtly shifts depending on what you're doing, adding this almost subconscious layer to the experience. Worry and the Will of the Wisps. Let's talk about Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This game is pure magic, plain and simple. If you're into games that are beautiful, emotional, and downright challenging, this is one you need to play. It's the kind of game that feels handcrafted, like every little detail exists to pull you deeper into its world. First off, the visuals. Oh my god, this game is gorgeous. It's like playing a living painting. Every area is packed with rich colors, stunning lighting, and crazy little details that make you stop and just stare. The environments are incredibly diverse, 2 lush forests, eerie caves, glowing underwater ruins. It's a visual treat from start to finish. And the animations? Smooth as butter. Ori glides, jumps and fights in a way that feels so fluid it's almost hypnotic. Now, gameplay. This is where Will of the Wisps really shines. It's a Metroidvania, so you're exploring a sprawling map, unlocking new abilities, and revisiting old areas to find secrets. And the platforming? It's tight. Every jump, dash, and glide feels perfectly tuned. The game's all about precision, and yeah, it can get tough. You'll die a lot. But when you finally nail a tricky section, it's insanely satisfying. Plus, the combat system got a serious upgrade from the first game. Ori now has a whole arsenal of attacks, swords, bows, even spirit hammers, and it makes every fight feel dynamic and exciting. And then there's the story. Ori and the Will of the Wisps doesn't just tug at your heartstrings, it practically rips them out. It picks up where Blind Forest left off, and without spoiling too much, it's all about family, loss, and finding hope in dark times. The game doesn't need a ton of dialogue to get its point across. The music, the visuals, and the little interactions between characters do all the heavy lifting. And that soundtrack, literal chills. It's hauntingly beautiful and perfectly matches every moment, whether it's a quiet, emotional scene or an intense boss battle. Speaking of boss battles, they're epic. The game throws some massive, terrifying creatures at you, and each fight is a mix of platforming and combat that feels like a dance. And let's not forget the chase sequences, those heart-pounding moments where you're running for your life while the music swells. They're stressful, sure, but they're also unforgettable. Ori and the Will of the Wisps isn't just a game, it's an experience. It's challenging but fair, emotional but not overbearing, and absolutely stunning from start to finish. If you love platformers, beautiful art, or just want to feel something real, this is a must play. Doom Eternal. Alright, buckle up because Doom Eternal is here to absolutely wreck your nerves in the best way possible. If you're looking for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping chaos where you feel like an unstoppable demon-slaying god, this is the game for you. It's Doom turned up to 11, and it does not hold back the story. Let's be real, it's there, but it's not why you're playing. You're the Doom Slayer, and demons have taken over Earth. That's all you need to know. What matters is that you've got a chainsaw, a shotgun, and a mission to send every single demon back to hell. The game throws you into a metal-fueled roller coaster of destruction, and it's glorious. Now, the gameplay. Oh man, the gameplay. It's not just shooting, it's an art form. You've got a ridiculous arsenal, from your trusty super shotgun now with a grappling hook to the BFG 9000, and every weapon has a purpose. But this isn't a game where you can just camp behind cover and pick off enemies. Nope, Doom Eternal demands that you keep moving, keep shooting, and keep ripping and tearing until there's nothing left. And the enemies, they don't mess around. The game throws wave after wave of demons at you, each one nastier than the last. You've got the classic imps and cacodemons, sure, but then there are new nightmares like the Marauder, who's basically the demon version of a boss fight every time you see him. It's intense, but here's the thing, it's not chaos for the sake of chaos. There's a rhythm to the combat. You have to manage your ammo, health, and armor, all while dodging fireballs and chainsawing demons for resources. It's pure, controlled mayhem. The level design is also next level. You're not just running through dark hallways. This game throws you into massive open battle arenas where verticality is key. You're double jumping, dashing, swinging on monkey bars. It's like Doom meets parkour, and it feels awesome. Plus, the environments are stunning. From the ruins of Earth to hell itself to some mind-blowing alien landscapes, every level feels unique and just dripping with atmosphere. And then there's the soundtrack. Oh, the soundtrack. Mick Gordon's heavy, industrial metal score is the lifeblood of this game. It pumps you up, keeps your heart racing, and perfectly matches the carnage on screen. Seriously, you could put this soundtrack on during a workout and suddenly feel like you can bench press a car. What makes Doom Eternal stand out though is how much it respects the player. It's not just hard for the sake of being hard, it challenges you to get better, to play smarter, and to master its systems. When you finally nail a combat encounter that seemed impossible at first, it feels incredible. Tomb Raider 2013. Tomb Raider 2013 is a grounded reboot that reintroduces Lara Croft as a young archaeologist learning to survive in hostile conditions. The story begins with a shipwreck that leaves Lara and her crew stranded on a dangerous island. As events unfold, Lara is pushed to her limits, transforming from a curious explorer into a determined survivor. The gameplay combines exploration, combat, and puzzles. The island is filled with areas to uncover, including optional tombs with rewarding challenges. Puzzles are logical and straightforward, encouraging critical thinking without becoming frustrating. The combat focuses on resourcefulness. Lara uses a bow and other weapons while taking advantage of her environment. Players can approach encounters stealthily or engage directly, with both options feeling responsive and satisfying. Lara's development ties the game together. Her growth feels natural and earned, reflecting the challenges she faces. By the end, she emerges as a capable adventurer, and the journey feels complete. Tomb Raider 2013 is an engaging action-adventure game that balances its elements well. It's an excellent starting point for players interested in Lara Croft's modern story. Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human is an interactive narrative game set in a near-future world where androids serve humans in everyday life. The story explores themes of freedom, morality, and humanity through three main characters. The gameplay focuses on decision-making. Every choice you make affects the story, sometimes in subtle ways and sometimes with significant consequences. The branching narrative structure ensures that no two playthroughs are exactly the same. Dialogue choices, quick-time events, and exploration all play a role in shaping the outcome. The stakes often feel high, and the weight of your decisions carries through to the end. Detroit Become Human succeeds because it gives players control over its story. The outcomes depend entirely on how you approach its conflicts, and every choice matters. It's a thought-provoking experience that uses its interactive medium to explore complex ideas effectively. If you enjoy story-driven games, this one offers plenty to think about. Bioshock Infinite. Let's talk about Bioshock Infinite. This game is a wild ride, and if you haven't played it yet, you're in for something special. It's a first-person shooter, sure, but what really makes it stand out is the story, the world, and the way everything ties together. You play as Booker DeWitt, a guy with a shady past who's sent to this insane floating city called Columbia to bring back a girl named Elizabeth. At first, it seems simple enough: find the girl, clear your debt, but things get weird fast. Columbia looks like this bright, patriotic utopia, all sunshine and old-timey music, but underneath it's seriously messed up. There's racism, classism, and this creepy cult vibe around the city's founder, Comstock. It's beautiful to explore, but the more you dig into it, the darker it gets. The gameplay is a blast. You've got your guns, sure, but then there are vigors, basically magic powers. You can throw fire, summon a murder of crows, or even lift enemies with a gravity shock. It's chaotic in the best way. And the city's skyline system. So fun. You're zipping around on rails in the middle of a firefight, pulling off these crazy aerial moves. It keeps things fresh, and the combat never feels stale. Then there's Elizabeth. She's not just some escort mission character, she's the heart of the game. She's smart, resourceful, and she actually helps in combat, tossing you ammo, health, and even opening portals or tiers to bring in extra weapons or cover. But more than that, she's a great character. You get to know her, and by the end you care about what happens to her. The story, though, that's the real star here. It dives into heavy themes like choice, fate, and redemption without feeling preachy. And that ending? Let's just say it'll leave you staring at the screen, trying to process what just just happened. It's one of those wait what moments that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Bioshock Infinite is one of those games that does it all. It's fun to play, the story pulls you in, and the world feels alive. Whether you're into action, narrative, or just exploring cool places, this one's worth your time. To the Moon. To the Moon is a small game with a big heart. It's not about flashy graphics or complex mechanics, it's all about the story, and wow, does it deliver. This is one of those games that sneaks up on you emotionally and hits harder than you'd expect. You play as two scientists, Dr. Rosaline and Dr. Watts, who work for a company that fulfills people's dying wishes by altering their memories. They're called in to help Johnny, an elderly man whose final wish is to go to the moon. The catch, he doesn't know why he wants to go. So you dive into his memories, moving backward through his life to piece together his story and figure out how to grant his wish. The gameplay is super simple. It's mostly exploring, solving light puzzles, and connecting memory fragments. There's no combat, no skill-based challenges, just you, the story, and the music. And honestly, that's all it needs. The simplicity lets the narrative shine. The heart of the game is in its characters. Johnny's life, his relationships, his joys and regrets, they all feel so real. As you uncover his past, you start to see how everything connects, and by the end, you'll probably be fighting back tears. It's not just about his wish, it's about love, loss, and how our memories shape who we are. To the Moon isn't a long game, maybe 4 to 5 hours, but it's unforgettable. It's heartfelt, thoughtful, and hits on themes that stick with you. If you're in the mood for something different, something that feels more like a good book or movie than a typical game, give it a shot. It's simple, but its impact is anything but. Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a masterpiece of storytelling and world building. It's more than just a game, it's an experience that pulls you into the dying days of the Wild West. You play as Arthur Morgan, a member of the Van der Linde gang, and the story explores loyalty, morality, and survival as the gang's world starts to fall apart. What makes this game stand out is its attention to detail. The world feels alive, from the bustling towns to the quiet forests and snowy mountains. NPCs have routines, wildlife behaves naturally, and even your horse develops a bond with you over time. It's the kind of game where you can spend hours just hunting, fishing, or riding through the landscape taking in the sights. The story is incredible, with characters that feel real. Arthur Morgan is a complicated man, tough, flawed, but with a moral core that makes his journey compelling. The gang members each have distinct personalities, and their interactions bring the camp to life. Dutch van der Linde, the gang's leader, is particularly fascinating as his idealism starts to crumble under the weight of his own decisions.
Get down here now!
Combat and gameplay are solid, with gunfights that feel intense and weighty. The game balances action with slower, more methodical moments like maintaining your gear, caring for your horse, or choosing how to interact with people. Your choices in these interactions affect how others perceive Arthur, and the game rewards both honorable and ruthless approaches in different ways. The writing and pacing are top-notch. The game takes its time, letting you settle into the world and Arthur's story. It's not afraid to slow down, whether that's through long rides with dialogue or quiet moments at camp. These pauses make the high-stakes action hit even harder when things go wrong. Red Dead Redemption 2 is more than a game about cowboys and outlaws. It's a story about the end of an era, told with care and attention to every detail. If you're looking for an open-world game that values narrative as much as exploration, this is one of the best out there.
It is us or him!
Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is a stunning open-world game that blends action, exploration, and a heartfelt story. Set during the Mongol invasion of Japan in the 13th century, you play as Jin Sakai, a samurai torn between upholding his honor and doing whatever it takes to protect his homeland. The island of Tsushima is the real star here. It's one of the most breathtaking game worlds ever created. Rolling fields of flowers, dense forests, misty mountains, and golden temples, all of it feels alive. The game guides you with the the guiding wind mechanic instead of a traditional HUD, which makes exploration feel natural. You're not just looking at waypoints, you're following the wind, wildlife, and visual cues to uncover secrets. The combat is a highlight. It's all about precision and timing. You can fight honorably as a samurai, parrying and slicing through enemies in one-on-one duels, or embrace stealth as the ghost sneaking through camps and taking out foes quietly. Both playstyles are satisfying, and the game encourages you to use both depending on the situation. Switching between stances to counter different enemy types adds depth, and the duel's intense one-on-one sword fights are some of the most memorable moments in the game. The game's pacing balances intense battles with quiet moments. Whether you're meditating at a shrine, writing a haiku, or simply riding across a sunlit field, there's always a sense of calm between the action. Ghost of Tsushima is more than just a samurai game. It's a love letter to Japanese history and culture wrapped in a beautifully crafted open world experience. Whether you're drawn in by the combat, the story, or the visuals, it's a game that stays with you long after the credits roll. Yakuza 0. Yakuza 0 is a prequel that sets the stage for the series while standing strong as one of the best entries on its own. Set in 1988, it follows two protagonists, Kazuma Kiryu, a young Yakuza framed for a murder he didn't commit, and Goro Majima, a disgraced Yakuza trying to claw his way back into the fold. The story is packed with crime drama, betrayal, and emotional depth, but it's also balanced by the series' signature quirky humor. The game takes place in two vibrant districts, Kamurocho and Sotenbori. These are bustling, neon-soaked playgrounds filled with activities. One moment you're solving a murder mystery, and the next you're singing karaoke, managing a cabaret club, or helping a guy get his stolen pants back. The side stories are some of the best parts of the game. They're weird, funny, and surprisingly heartfelt, adding a ton of charm to the gritty main story. Combat is fast and over the top. Both Kiryu and Majima have three fighting styles, and switching between them mid-fight keeps things exciting. Kiryu's styles range from balanced brawling to heavy-hitting power moves, while Majima's styles include everything from breakdancing to a flashy thug-style beatdown. Fights are brutal, satisfying, and full of heat actions, cinematic finishing moves that are as painful as they are fun to watch. What really sets Yakuza 0 apart is its balance. The main story is intense, filled with betrayals, power struggles, and moments that hit hard emotionally. But the game knows when to lighten up, and that's where the side content comes in. The ridiculous side missions, arcade games, and even real estate management feel like a welcome break without ever clashing with the story's tone. The characters are unforgettable. Kiryu is stoic and loyal, while Majima is wild yet surprisingly vulnerable. Their arcs in this game are some of the strongest in the series, giving you a real sense of where they came from and why they're so beloved. If you're new to the series, Yakuza 0 is the perfect place to start. It's got the crime drama, the wild humor, and the deep, varied gameplay the series is known for. Whether you're here for the story, the fights, or just to see what all the hype is about, this game delivers. The Walking Dead: The Telltale series.
Don't drop the goddamn gun!
The Walking Dead: The Telltale series is a story-driven game that puts your choices at the heart of its experience. It's set in the same universe as the comics but tells its own story, focusing on a group of survivors trying to make it through a zombie apocalypse. What sets this game apart is how deeply it invests you in its characters and the tough decisions you have to make. You play as Lee Everett, a man with a complicated past who becomes the guardian of Clementine, a young girl who's lost her family. The story is less about fighting zombies and more about the relationships between the survivors and the moral dilemmas they face. Do you risk your safety to help a stranger? Do you side with one group member over another, knowing it could fracture the group? The game constantly puts you in tough situations where there's no clear right or wrong answer. Gameplay is simple but effective. It's mostly dialogue choices, exploration, and quick time events. The dialogue system is where the game shines. Every choice you make feels significant, and the game remembers your decisions. Characters react differently based on how you treat them, and your actions can lead to very different outcomes. It makes every moment feel personal and weighty. The art style captures the look of the comics with a slightly gritty, CL-shaded feel that works perfectly for the tone of the game. The voice acting is top-notch, especially for Lee and Clementine, who anchored the emotional core of the story. Their bond grows throughout the series, and by the end, it's impossible not to feel connected to them. What makes The Walking Dead so impactful is its emotional weight. It's not afraid to break your heart. Characters you grow attached to might not survive, and your choices can lead to devastating consequences. But those moments are what make the story so memorable. If you're into games that prioritize storytelling and character development, The Walking Dead is a must-play. It's gripping, emotional, and proves that games can tell stories as powerful as any book or movie.
Sturdy my ass! Get upstairs! Go!
Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is one of the most unique and thought-provoking games you'll ever play. It's not about flashy combat or saving the world, it's a detective RPG where the most powerful tools are your choices, your words, and your own mind. Set in the crumbling city of Rivakol, you play as a washed-up, amnesiac detective trying to solve a murder while piecing together who you even are. The core of the game is its writing, which is phenomenal. Every conversation, every internal thought, and every piece of world building feels sharp and meaningful. The dialogue isn't just there to fill space, it's where most of the action happens. Your character's fragmented mind becomes its own cast of voices, each representing parts of your personality like logic, empathy, or wild impulses. These voices constantly chime in, offering advice, conflicting opinions, or downright ridiculous ideas. It's as much about arguing with yourself as it is about solving the case. There's no traditional combat, instead you navigate the story through dialogue, skill checks, and decisions. How you build your character completely changes how you approach situations. Want to be a sharp-witted detective who solves everything with intellect? Go for it. Prefer to lean into chaos, charm, or brute force? That works too. The game doesn't punish you for playing how you want, it adapts and reacts in fascinating ways. The world of Rivakol is gritty and full of history, but it's also strangely beautiful. The city feels alive with every character, location, and event steeped in layers of political, cultural, and social complexity. The people you meet are flawed but memorable, from the hard-nosed Lieutenant Kim Kitsuragi, your partner, to the eccentric locals with their own baggage and agendas. What makes Disco Elysium special is how it balances humor, tragedy, and introspection. It's funny in a dark, absurd way, but it also doesn't shy away from heavy themes like addiction, failure, and the consequences of your choices. The story can be messy and unpredictable, just like the detective you're playing, but that's what makes it feel so personal and engaging. If you're looking for a game that challenges you to think, laugh, and reflect, Disco Elysium is an unforgettable experience. It's less about solving a murder and more about solving yourself, and the journey is worth every moment. Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal is a masterclass in storytelling, style, and character-driven gameplay. It's an expanded version of the original Persona 5, adding new content, mechanics, and story elements that make an already great game even better. At its core, it's about rebellion, taking a stand against corrupt systems while juggling the life of an ordinary high school student in Tokyo. You play as a transfer student who, along with a group of friends, discovers the ability to enter a parallel dimension called the Metaverse. In this world, they become the Phantom Thieves, fighting manifestations of people's twisted desires to change their hearts in the real world. The story combines personal struggles, social critique, and over-the-top action in a way that keeps you hooked from start to finish. The gameplay has two halves: your daily life as a student and your adventures in the metaverse. During the day, you'll attend school, build friendships, and take part in activities like studying, working part-time, or just hanging out. These activities aren't just fluff, they help strengthen your relationships and improve your stats, which directly impact how you handle the game's other half, dungeon crawling. The turn-based combat is stylish and strategic. Each dungeon or palace is unique, with puzzles and enemies tailored to its theme. The combat system encourages experimentation with elemental weaknesses and team synergy, and the addition of new moves in Royal makes it feel even more dynamic. There's also the randomized Mementos dungeon, which offers a break from the main story and lets you grind or complete side missions. What makes Persona 5 Royal so memorable is its characters. Each member of the Phantom Thieves has a deeply personal story that unfolds as you get to know them. They're not just allies in battle, they're friends, each dealing with their own struggles and growth. The new characters and expanded content in Royal add even more depth, giving players fresh perspectives and new emotional beats. And of course there's the presentation. The game oozes style, from its slick menus to its jazzy, unforgettable soundtrack. The art direction brings every scene to life, whether it's the vibrant streets of Tokyo or the surreal, otherworldly palaces. Persona 5 Royal isn't just a game, it's an experience that stays with you. The combination of deep characters, meaningful choices, and stylish gameplay makes it one of the best JRPGs out there. If you're a fan of turn-based combat, great stories, or games that let you sink into another world, this one is a must-play. Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 is a sci-fi RPG that raises the stakes and refines the formula of the original. It's the middle chapter in the Mass Effect trilogy, and it's often regarded as the series' best entry. You step back into the role of Commander Shepard, tasked with assembling a team of specialists to stop an emerging threat known as the Collectors. What makes this game shine is its focus on building relationships, making tough choices, and balancing action with narrative depth. The story kicks off with a bang, literally. Shepard's ship, the Normandy, is destroyed, and Shepard is brought back to life by Cerberus, a shadowy organization with its own motives. From there, you're thrown into a race against time to recruit a team of allies, each with their own unique skills and personal baggage, to take on what's essentially a suicide mission. The stakes feel high throughout, and the game does a great job of making you care about the characters and their survival. The heart of Mass Effect 2 is its squad. Each member has a detailed backstory and loyalty mission, a personal quest that helps you understand their motivations and ensures their commitment to the mission. These missions aren't just filler, they're some of the best parts of the game, letting you dive deep into the characters' lives and make choices that can have major consequences.
Thank you, Legion. I understand your...
Combat is more refined than the first game. It's faster, smoother, and more focused on tactical gunplay. You've got a mix of weapons, biotic powers, and tech abilities, and each squad member brings something unique to the table. Choosing the right team for each mission adds a layer of strategy, and the cover-based shooting feels responsive and satisfying. The game also nails its world building. Every location you visit, from the neon-lit streets of Omega to the sterile corridors of Cerberus facilities, feels alive and distinct. The writing is sharp, and your decisions carry real weight, shaping not just the story but also the relationships you build with your squad mates. And then there's the finale, a tense, high-stakes mission where every choice you've made comes to a head. Who survives, who doesn't, and how the mission plays out all depend on how prepared you are and how much effort you've put into your team. Mass Effect 2 is an exceptional blend of action, story, and character development. Whether you're here for the tight combat, the branching narrative, or the deep relationships with your squad, it delivers on every front. It's a standout RPG and a shining example of how to make player choice matter. It's A Plague Tale Requiem. A Plague Tale Requiem is a gripping sequel that builds on everything its predecessor did well, delivering a deeper, darker, and more intense experience. It continues the story of siblings Amisha and Hugo as they navigate a brutal world torn apart by war, plague, and the terrifying spread of Hugo's mysterious powers. The story picks up not long after A Plague Tale Innocence. Amisha and Hugo are searching for a cure for Hugo's illness, but their journey takes them to even more dangerous places. The narrative doesn't shy away from hard-hitting themes like loss, sacrifice, and the lengths we go to for the people we love. Amisha's growing desperation to protect her brother adds layers to her character, making her struggles feel raw and real. Gameplay expands on the stealth and survival elements of the first game. You'll still need to sneak past enemies, solve environmental puzzles, and use the tools at your disposal, but Requiem introduces new mechanics that give you more freedom and options in how you approach situations. Amisha's arsenal has been expanded, and Hugo's connection to the Plague's rats gives you some terrifyingly powerful abilities to wield. The mix of stealth, action, and problem solving keeps the gameplay engaging throughout. The visuals are a standout. The game's world is both haunting and beautiful, with detailed environments that range from lush countryside to grim, decaying cities overrun by the plague. The rats are back in full force, and their sheer numbers create some of the most visually striking and horrifying moments in the game. The lighting and sound design amplify the tension, making every encounter feel oppressive and intense. Where Requiem truly shines is its emotional core. The relationship between Amisha and Hugo remains the heart of the game, and their journey feels deeply personal. The stakes are higher, the challenges are greater, and the emotional toll is heavier, but it all feels earned. By the time the credits roll, the story leaves a lasting impact. A Plague Tale: Requiem is a powerful narrative-driven experience that balances stealth, action, and emotional storytelling. If you enjoyed the first game or are looking for a gripping tale set in a beautifully grim world, this is a sequel that doesn't disappoint. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is exactly what you'd want from a sequel that takes everything you loved about Fallen Order and makes it bigger, better, and way more intense. It picks up 5 years later with Cal Kestis now a full-blown Jedi, still on the run from the Empire and trying to make a difference in a galaxy that feels more broken than ever. The story dives into some heavier stuff too: loyalty, sacrifice, and what it really means to keep fighting when the odds are stacked against you. Cal's grown a lot, and you feel it. The gameplay, so good. They've taken the combat and fleshed it out even more. You've got different lightsaber stances now, like dual wielding or a heavy crossguard stance that makes you feel like a tank. Switching between them depending on the enemy keeps things fresh, and when you nail those parries or use force powers to throw someone off a ledge, it's just chef's kiss. The enemies are tougher and more varied too, so you're constantly tweaking your approach. Exploration is where this game shines. The worlds are way bigger and packed with secrets, puzzles, and side quests. You'll get lost in the best way, whether you're climbing ancient ruins, finding hidden Jedi chambers, or just chilling in a cantina talking to NPCs. Movement feels smoother this time, with new traversal tools that make exploring more fun. You can even tame and ride creatures, which is just so cool. It's all very Star Wars, that perfect mix of epic and whimsical. Visually, it's stunning. Each planet has its own vibe, from lush forests to crumbling cities, and they all feel alive. The attention to detail is insane, like you can see the wear on Cal's outfit after a fight, or how the wind moves through the grass as you run. And the music, it's pure Star Wars magic. It knows exactly when to hit you with the epic orchestral swells or pull back for a quiet, emotional moment. What makes Jedi Survivor special though is how it balances everything. The action's awesome, but it also gives you time to connect with the characters and let the story breathe. Cal's journey feels personal, and the relationships he builds, old and new, really pull you in. By the end, it's not just about lightsabers and cool fights though, there's plenty of that. It's about the choices he makes and what they mean for him and everyone around him. If you loved Fallen Order, this is a no-brainer. It's bigger, deeper, and just feels like the next step in Cal's story. And if you're into action-adventure games with great combat and storytelling, this is one you don't want to miss. It's Star Wars at its best. Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 is the kind of game that doesn't just challenge you, it demands your respect. It's punishing, sure, but it's also deeply rewarding once you get into its rhythm. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to earn every inch of progress in a game, this is it. It's the final entry in the series, and it ties everything together with a sense of finality and weight that fans of the series will appreciate. The world of Dark Souls 3 is bleak, haunting, and absolutely beautiful in its own way. You'll explore crumbling castles, eerie catacombs, and ash-covered wastelands, each dripping with atmosphere. The level design is brilliant, looping back on itself in ways that make you stop and admire just how well everything fits together. Every shortcut feels like a victory, every bonfire like a lifeline. Combat is where the game shines. It's fast, brutal, and demands precision. You've got a ton of weapons to experiment with, each with its own feel and moveset, plus powerful magic if you want to go that route. Learning enemy patterns and timing your attacks is key, and when you finally take down a boss that's been wrecking you for hours, nothing beats that feeling. It's tough, but fair. If you die, it's usually because you pushed too hard or didn't adapt. And the bosses? They're insane in the best way. Each one is a test of everything you've learned so far. They're massive, intimidating, and often throw in a second phase just when you think you've got them figured out. But when you finally beat them, it feels like conquering a mountain. It's that kind of satisfaction. The story is classic Dark Souls, cryptic and buried in item descriptions and subtle environmental clues. It's not spoon-fed to you, but piecing it together is part of the fun. Themes of cycles, decay, and the struggle to find purpose run through everything, and it all builds toward a conclusion that feels like a fitting end to the series. If you're new to Dark Souls, this one might feel intimidating, but it's also the most polished and accessible entry in the trilogy. Veterans, though, will love how it ties back to the previous games while still standing on its own. Dark Souls 3 isn't for everyone, but if you're up for the challenge, it's one of the most rewarding games out there. It's not just about difficulty, it's about growth, persistence, and the thrill of overcoming what seemed impossible. No Man's Sky. If we're talking about endless replay value, No Man's Sky is a no-brainer. This game literally gives you an entire universe to explore with over 18 quintillion procedurally generated planets. Each one has unique environments, creatures, and resources, so you never really run out of new things to see. But it's not just about wandering around, there's a lot to do. You can build bases, trade with alien factions, hunt for rare resources, or even take on space pirates. And with all the updates Hello Games has dropped over the years, the game feels like it keeps evolving. Whether you want to explore solo, team up with friends, or just chill and build your dream base, there's something here for everyone. The best part? Every time you start the game, it's a new experience. You never know what kind of planet you'll land on or what kind of adventure you'll find. It's the ultimate sandbox game for anyone who loves space and discovery. No Man's Sky isn't just a game, it's an infinite playground you can keep coming back to forever. Exploration is just the start though. The game has grown so much since its launch, with updates adding a ton of new features. You can build and customize massive bases, tame alien creatures, upgrade your starships, or even create entire colonies with friends. There's also combat both on the ground and in space, so you can fend off hostile wildlife or take on space pirates if you're feeling bold. And if you're into multiplayer, you can team up with friends or strangers to explore galaxies together or tackle large-scale missions. What makes No Man's Sky special is its flexibility. You can play it however you want. Want to focus on resource gathering and crafting? Go for it. Prefer to become a trader, buying low and selling high in different star systems? That's an option too. Or maybe you just want to hop in your ship and let the game take you somewhere random. You'll almost always stumble on something cool, whether it's a bizarre alien species or a breathtaking view. And then there's the constant stream of updates. Hello Games has added so much over the years: VR support, expanded base building, massive starships, underwater exploration, and even community events. It's like the game keeps reinventing itself, which makes it feel new every time you come back to it. Whether you're in it for the exploration, the building, or the sheer chill vibes of flying through space, No Man's Sky is a game that never truly ends. It's the kind of game you can pick up, play for a while, and always find something new and exciting waiting for you. If endless replay value had a poster child, this would be it. Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World is a game that redefines endless replay value. It's all about hunting massive monsters, crafting better gear from their parts, and using that gear to take on even tougher monsters. The gameplay loop is simple but incredibly addictive, and the sheer variety of monsters and gear makes every hunt feel fresh. The core of the game is mastering your weapon of choice. There are 14 unique weapon types, from heavy-hitting greatswords to ranged options like the bow or light bow gun. Each weapon feels completely different, so switching to a new one can make the game feel brand new. And it's not just about attacking, you're learning to read monsters, dodge their moves, and figure out the best strategies to take them down. The monsters themselves are incredible. Each one has its own behaviors, weaknesses, and attack patterns. Whether you're fighting the fire-breathing Anjanath or the thunderous Xenogar, every encounter is a mix of strategy and skill. And when you finally take down a monster after a long, intense battle, the sense of accomplishment is unmatched. Then there's the multiplayer. Hunting with friends or joining online teams adds a whole new layer to the experience. Coordinating attacks, setting traps, and working together to take down massive elder dragons is as satisfying as it gets. And the game's host flare system lets you jump into other players' hunts or call for help if you're struggling, which keeps the community active and engaging. The game also keeps things fresh with its post-launch updates. Monster Hunter World has had free updates adding new monsters, events, and gear. And if you pick up the Iceborne expansion, you're getting a whole new set of challenges with even tougher monsters, snowy landscapes, and expanded gear options. What makes Monster Hunter World endlessly replayable is its depth. You're always chasing something, a new weapon, a rare armor set, or just the thrill of the hunt. Every session feels rewarding whether you're grinding for rare materials or just messing around with friends. It's the kind of game that keeps pulling you back in hunt after hunt. Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. When it comes to endless replay value, Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is a game that's hard to beat. It's a sandbox RPG where you build your own path in a massive medieval world. Whether you want to lead armies, manage your own kingdom, or simply roam the land as a mercenary, the game gives you complete freedom to play your way. The core of the game is its dynamic world. Factions wage wars, form alliances, and crumble based on what you and other AI leaders do. You can choose to serve a kingdom as a vassal, rise to power as a ruler, or stay independent and build your fortune as a trader, bandit, or arena champion. Every choice impacts the world around you, and no two playthroughs are ever the same. Combat is where the game shines. Battles are large-scale and chaotic, with hundreds of soldiers clashing on the field. You can fight on foot, ride into battle on horseback, or rain arrows from a distance. The combat system is skill-based, with realistic melee mechanics that take time to master. Leading your troops adds another layer of strategy, as positioning and tactics can mean the difference between victory and defeat. The campaign mode is a sandbox dream. You can recruit and train your own army, manage settlements, and even marry into powerful families to secure alliances. The economy is dynamic too, so trading and managing resources can be a viable way to build wealth and power. What makes Bannerlord endlessly replayable is the sheer variety of ways to approach the game. Want to be a ruthless warlord conquering the map? You can. Prefer to roleplay as a peaceful trader staying out of wars? That works too. And with mods, the game becomes even more expansive, letting you tweak mechanics, add new factions, or even play in entirely different settings. If you love games that let you craft your own story and reward creativity, Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is the kind of game you can sink hundreds or thousands of hours into without ever getting bored. It's the ultimate medieval sandbox. Hades 2. If you're a fan of the original Hades, you'll feel right at home with Hades 2, but this time there's a fresh twist. You play as Melino, the princess of the underworld and sister to Zagreus, on a quest to take down Kronos, the titan of time. The roguelike gameplay is back and just as addictive, with fast-paced combat, procedurally generated dungeons, and that rich storytelling Supergiant Games is known for. The combat is sharp and familiar, but Hades 2 adds plenty of new tricks to keep things exciting. There are new weapons to master, new abilities to unlock, and a fresh cast of Olympian gods granting you boons. Each run feels unique as you experiment with different combinations of powers and strategies to see how far you can push. One of the best things about Hades 2 is how it builds on the original's approach to narrative. You're not just hacking and slashing, you're unraveling a story, interacting with a new lineup of gods, and diving deeper into Greek mythology. The characters are just as memorable and engaging as before, with that perfect blend of drama, humor, and personality.
Baldur and I were not as close as was its last relationship.
What makes Hades 2 endlessly replayable is how it keeps surprising you. The challenge ramps up, but so do your options. Every run feels like progress, whether it's learning a new enemy's patterns, unlocking a weapon upgrade, or piecing together another part of the story. Even in early access, Hades 2 already feels polished and full of content. If you loved the first game, or if you're new to the series but want something that mixes tight gameplay with great storytelling, this is a game you can easily sink countless hours into. It's a sequel that knows exactly what worked in the first game and gives you even more to love. Deep Rock Galactic. If you're looking for a game with endless replay value, Deep Rock Galactic is a solid pick. It's a co-op shooter where you and up to 3 friends play as badass space dwarves working for a mining corporation. The job? Dig deep into procedurally generated caves on an alien planet, gather resources, and fight off waves of terrifying creatures. It's chaotic, fun, and endlessly satisfying. The missions are straightforward but never feel repetitive. There's a mix of objectives: mining rare minerals, repairing lost equipment, or retrieving alien eggs, all while dealing with unpredictable cave systems and swarms of enemies. No 2 runs feel the same thanks to the procedural generation, which keeps things fresh every time you drop into the depths. Each dwarf has a unique class with its own abilities and tools. The gunner lays down heavy firepower, the engineer sets up turrets, the driller carves through rock with ease, and the scout zips around with a grappling hook and flare gun. The teamwork dynamics make every mission a blast, as you'll need to work together to survive and complete your objectives. The gameplay loop is simple but addictive. Complete missions, earn rewards, and use them to upgrade your gear, unlock perks, and customize your dwarf. The progression feels rewarding, and there's always something new to aim for, whether it's a shiny new weapon mod or a ridiculous cosmetic item. One of the best things about Deep Rock Galactic is its tone. It's full of humor and charm, from the dwarves' hilarious one-liners to the lively hub area where you can chill, customize your loadout, or even have a drink at the bar. It strikes a perfect balance between intense action and lighthearted fun. With its constant updates, seasonal content, and an active player base, Deep Rock Galactic is the kind of game you can keep coming back to. Whether you're playing with friends or jumping into random lobbies, it's a chaotic, satisfying experience that never gets old. Rock and Stone. Sea of Thieves. If you've ever dreamed of being a pirate, Sea of Thieves is the ultimate game to scratch that itch. It's a shared world adventure where you and your crew sail the high seas, looking for treasure, battling rival ships, and unraveling mysteries across a stunning open ocean. The best part, the game is whatever you want it to be. There's no wrong way to play. You can take on voyages for different trading companies, like hunting down legendary treasure, tracking cursed skeletons, or catching rare fish. Every session feels like a unique adventure, especially since the world is shared with other players. You never know if that ship on the horizon is going to be a friendly crew or a group of pirates ready to steal your loot. Combat is simple but fun, both on land and at sea. Ship battles are intense, requiring your crew to work together, steering, firing cannons, patching holes, and bailing water when things get rough. It's chaotic in the best way, especially when you're up against another player's ship or one of the game's massive threats like the Kraken or a ghost fleet. The world is gorgeous, with crystal clear waters, sun-drenched islands, and stormy seas that keep you on your toes. Exploration is a big part of the game, and the islands are full of secrets, puzzles, and hidden treasures to uncover. Plus, with regular updates, there's always something new to do, from fresh storylines to limited time events. The beauty of Sea of Thieves is its freedom. You can spend a session chasing treasure, exploring islands, or just messing around with your crew. Want to roleplay as a peaceful merchant, or become the most feared pirate on the server? It's all up to you. With its emphasis on player interaction and constant updates, Sea of Thieves is a game you can keep coming back to. Whether you're playing solo, with friends, or jumping into random lobbies, every voyage feels like a fresh story waiting to unfold. It's the perfect sandbox for anyone who loves the idea of living the pirate life. Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is the kind of game you can sink hundreds of hours into and still feel like you've barely scratched the surface. Built on the foundations of Dungeons & Dragons, it's an epic RPG that gives you complete freedom to explore, fight, and make decisions that shape your story. Whether you're a longtime fan of the series or just love deep story-driven games, this one delivers. You create a character and assemble a party of companions, each with their own backstories, goals, and conflicts. The story kicks off with a mind flayer parasite in your head, and from there it's a journey of survival, alliances, and uncovering dark secrets. The choices you make matter whether it's in dialogue, combat, or exploration. Everything affects how the world and its characters respond to you. Combat uses a turn-based system, which makes it feel like a true tabletop experience. You can experiment with different strategies, spells, and abilities, and the environment often plays a big role. Push an enemy off a cliff, set a trap, or use the terrain to your advantage. It's all about creativity. What makes Baldur's Gate 3 endlessly replayable is how much the game reacts to your decisions. There are countless ways to approach every situation, whether you're sneaking past enemies, talking your way out of trouble, or just diving in with swords and fireballs blazing. Each playthrough feels unique because of the sheer variety in classes, companions, and story paths. The world is massive and full of detail. You'll explore dense forests, ancient ruins, bustling towns, and so much more, each packed with quests, secrets, and moral dilemmas. And because it's based on DD, the game is full of those little moments where the dice roll decides your fate, adding unpredictability to every interaction. Whether you're here for the epic story, the tactical combat, or just the chance to roleplay your dream character, Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that keeps giving. It's not just about beating the game, it's about the stories you create along the way, and it's the kind of experience you'll want to dive into again and again. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is a game that's as challenging as it is rewarding. Developed by From Software, the minds behind Dark Souls and Bloodborne, it offers a different kind of experience focusing on precise, high-stakes combat and a gripping story of loyalty and revenge set in a beautifully crafted version of Sengoku-era Japan. You play as Wolf, a shinobi, on a mission to rescue your kidnapped lord and protect him from a mysterious cult. The story is more straightforward than other From Software games, but it's packed with layers of mystery and lore if you take the time to explore. The personal stakes of Wolf's journey add an emotional depth that pulls you in. The combat is where Sekiro really shines. Forget hacking and slashing, this is all about timing, precision, and learning your enemy's patterns. You'll use your katana to parry, block, and land devastating counterattacks, but every fight feels like a dance. The posture system, which rewards aggression and perfect timing, makes battles feel tense and tactical. Boss fights in particular are unforgettable. Each one is a massive test of skill and patience, but beating them feels like an achievement in itself. Outside of combat, Sekiro gives you a grappling hook, letting you navigate the world in ways that feel freeing and dynamic. You'll swing between cliffs, sneak through enemy camps, and uncover hidden areas packed with secrets. Exploration is rewarding with plenty of upgrades, lore, and optional challenges to discover. The world design is stunning. From misty forests and snowy mountains to crumbling temples and vibrant castles, every area feels alive with atmosphere and danger. The game's visuals and soundtrack immerse you in its world, making every moment memorable. What makes Sekiro endlessly replayable is its skill-based nature. Every playthrough is a chance to refine your technique, experiment with different approaches, or tackle optional bosses and endings you might have missed. The difficulty can be punishing, but the payoff, whether it's a perfectly timed deflect or a hard-fought victory, makes it worth coming back to. If you're up for a challenge and love games that reward mastery and perseverance, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is a must-play. It's not just a game, it's an experience that sticks with you long after you've put down the controller. Nioh 2. Just like Sekiro, if you're into challenging action games with deep combat systems, Nioh 2 is a game you'll keep coming back to. It's a prequel to the first Nioh, but you don't need to have played the original to dive in. You create your own custom character, a half-human, half-yokai warrior, and take on a journey through a dark mythological version of Sengoku-era Japan. The combat is the star of the show. It's fast, precise, and packed with options. You have a wide range of weapons to master, from katanas and axes to more exotic choices like kusaragamas and switchglaives, and each weapon feels unique, and the skill trees give you the freedom to refine your playstyle. Add in yokai abilities, special moves you absorb from enemies, and combat becomes even more dynamic and satisfying. The game's stance system, where you switch between high, mid, and low stances, adds a layer of strategy to every fight. High stance deals heavy damage, mid stance balances offense and defense, and low stance focuses on speed and dodging. Knowing when to switch stances during a fight keeps you engaged and on your toes. Boss fights are where Nioh 2 really shines. Each boss feels like a unique puzzle to solve, with attacks and patterns that force you to adapt and learn. They're tough, but the thrill of victory after finally taking one down is unbeatable. Exploration is another big part of the game. Levels are filled with secrets, shortcuts, and collectibles like the adorable little Kodama spirits that grant you bonuses. You'll also find new gear constantly, and the loot system ensures there's always a reason to tweak your build and try out new strategies. The multiplayer adds even more replay value. You can team up with friends or summon allies to help with tough battles, and the game includes co-op options that let you tackle missions together. There's also the Dream of the Strong and other higher difficulty modes, which provide fresh challenges even after you've beaten the main story. With its intense combat, deep customization, and endless ways to experiment, Nioh 2 is the kind of game that keeps you hooked. Whether you're chasing better gear, mastering a new weapon, or just looking to test your skills against tougher enemies, this is a game you can easily play for hundreds of hours. The Hitman Trilogy. The Hitman Trilogy, spanning Hitman 2016, Hitman 2 2018, and Hitman 3 2021, is a masterclass in stealth gameplay and replayability. You step into the shoes of Agent 47, a professional assassin with a knack for turning anything, literally anything, into a deadly weapon. Across these three games, you're given access to a massive variety of intricately designed levels, each one a sandbox for creativity and strategy. What makes the trilogy so replayable is its freedom of approach. Each mission drops you into a sprawling location, whether it's a Paris fashion show, a Colombian jungle, or a Dubai skyscraper, and leaves the how up to you. You can go loud with explosives, take a sniper's precision shot, or disguise yourself as a waiter and poison someone's drink. Every choice feels meaningful, and the sheer variety of ways to complete a mission means you'll want to replay levels just to try out new tactics. The World of Assassination Trilogy carries your progress across all three games, meaning you can revisit missions from earlier titles with the improved mechanics of Hitman 3. It's a seamless experience that feels like one cohesive package rather than three separate games. The game also leans into experimentation with its mission stories and challenges. These are little scenarios that guide you through creative ways to eliminate your targets, like setting up an accidental death or manipulating NPCs into doing your work for you. And even after you've mastered a mission, the escalation contracts, elusive targets, and user-created missions keep the content flowing. Visually, the trilogy is stunning. Each location feels alive, with crowds of NPCs going about their business, creating a sense that you're sneaking through a real, dynamic world. The attention to detail is insane, from the reflective floors of a high-tech bank to the dense foliage of a tropical island. Whether you're a completionist looking to check off every challenge, a stealth purist trying to achieve the perfect silent assassin run, or just someone who loves messing around to see what happens, the Hitman Trilogy offers endless replay value. It's the ultimate sandbox for creative assassins, and no two playthroughs ever feel the same. Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 is a roguelite that takes the fast-paced action of its predecessor and translates it into a fully 3D experience. It's a game about survival, teamwork, and pushing your limits as you fight through waves of enemies and bosses in an ever-escalating challenge. Whether you're playing solo or with friends, the game offers endless replay value thanks to its dynamic gameplay and procedural design. You start each run by choosing a character known as a survivor, each with unique abilities and playstyles. Whether you're the agile huntress, the tanky loader, or the versatile engineer, each character feels distinct, and learning their strengths is part of the fun. As you defeat enemies, you earn money to open chests and buy items that enhance your abilities, creating powerful synergies that can turn you into an unstoppable force or leave you scrambling if luck isn't on your side. The levels are procedurally generated, so no two runs are ever the same. same. You'll explore alien environments from lush forests to desolate deserts, battling waves of enemies that get tougher the longer you stay. The game forces you to balance exploration and urgency, spend too long gathering items, and the enemies become overwhelming. The real magic of Risk of Rain 2 lies in its item system. Each item you find stacks, and the combinations can lead to some truly wild builds. You might stack items that increase your attack speed, create chain lightning with every hit, or spawn drones to fight alongside you. Experimenting with different items and builds makes every run feel unique and exciting. Boss fights add an extra layer of challenge, testing your ability to manage enemies, use the environment, and make the most of your build. And once you've beaten the boss of a stage, you decide whether to continue to the next level for even greater rewards or end the run by escaping. Risk of Rain 2 is a game you can keep coming back to. Its mix of challenging gameplay, endless customization, and cooperative fun makes it one of the most replayable roguelites out there. Whether you're experimenting with new builds, unlocking content, or just seeing how long you can survive, it's a game that never gets old. The Binding of Isaac. The Binding of Isaac is the definition of a game with endless replay value. It's a roguelite dungeon crawler where every run feels unique, well again, because of its procedurally generated levels, enemies, and items. You play as Isaac, a young boy escaping into the horrors of his basement to flee his fanatically religious mother. The story is dark and strange, but it sets the stage for a game that's all about experimentation and survival. The gameplay is simple but deep. You move through randomly generated rooms, defeating enemies, collecting power-ups, and facing off against challenging bosses. The variety in items is what makes the game so addictive. There are hundreds of items to discover, and they all interact in wild ways. One run might turn you into an unstoppable powerhouse with laser tears, while the next might challenge you to scrape by with weaker tools. The unpredictability keeps every playthrough fresh. The difficulty ramps up the further you go, but so does the potential for powerful builds. Unlocking new characters, items, and upgrades adds layers to the experience, encouraging you to keep playing and experimenting. There's always a new synergy to discover or a rare item you haven't seen yet. The game is packed with secrets. Hidden rooms, unlockable bosses, and alternate endings make it feel like there's always something new to uncover. Each run feels like an adventure with surprises around every corner. The visuals and music add to the game's charm. Its cartoony yet grotesque art style matches the dark humor and twisted tone of the story. The soundtrack is equally haunting and energizing, pulling you deeper into Isaac's surreal world. Whether you're aiming for a high score, unlocking everything, or just seeing how far you can get, The Binding of Isaac is a game that never gets old. Its mix of challenge, variety, and discovery makes it endlessly replayable. It's the kind of game you can jump into for a quick session or sink hours into without realizing it. Battle Brothers. Battle Brothers is a turn-based tactical RPG that's all about leading a mercenary company in a gritty, low-fantasy world. It's tough, unpredictable, and endlessly replayable thanks to its open-ended design and procedural elements. Every playthrough is unique, and no two campaigns ever feel the same. You start with a ragtag group of mercenaries and take on contracts to earn money, improve your gear, and grow your reputation. The contracts range from hunting down bandits and slaying beasts to escorting caravans and defending towns. As you build your company, you'll recruit new members, train them in different roles, and equip them with better weapons and armor. Combat is where Battle Brothers shines. It's deep and tactical with a hex-based grid and a focus on positioning, morale, and strategic decision-making. Your mercenaries can gain experience and level up, but they're also fragile. Death is permanent, and a single mistake can lead to losing a valuable fighter or even your entire company. It's a game that rewards careful planning and punishes overconfidence. The world itself is dynamic and reactive. Towns grow or fall depending on how events unfold, and your reputation influences how people treat you. You can choose to be a noble protector, a ruthless raider, or something in between. The world also throws curveballs at you, like crises involving noble wars, undead invasions, or greenskin hordes, each requiring you to adapt and survive. What keeps Battle Brothers endlessly replayable is the freedom it gives you. You can decide how to grow your company, what kind of contracts to take, and how to respond to the the game's challenges. The procedural maps, random events, and wide range of starting scenarios ensure every campaign feels fresh. The game also offers tons of content through expansions, adding new enemies, events, and mechanics, whether you're hunting down legendary beasts, exploring dangerous wilderness, or chasing treasure, there's always something to do. Battle Brothers is perfect for players who love challenging, strategic gameplay and don't mind the risk of failure. It's a game that tests your leadership and decision making at every step, and its unpredictability makes it the kind of game you can keep coming back to. If you're looking for a deep tactical experience with endless variety, this one's a winner. Elex II. Elex II is one of those games that flies under the radar but has a way of pulling you in if you give it a chance. It's an open world RPG where you play as Jax, a former hero trying to unite the warring factions of a post-apocalyptic world before an alien threat destroys everything. The setup might sound familiar, but the execution feels unique. What makes Elex II stand out is its world. It's a strange mix of sci-fi and fantasy, where jetpacks and lasers exist alongside swords and magic. The open world is huge and full of secrets, with factions that feel distinct and often morally gray. Exploring feels rewarding because the game doesn't hold your hand if you see something interesting. Chances are it's worth checking out. The combat can feel clunky at first, but as you level up and tweak your character's skills, it starts to click. It's the kind of game where you start out weak and earn every bit of progress, which makes every victory feel satisfying. The story is serviceable, but the real hook is how your choices shape the world. Factions remember how you treat them, and your alliances affect how the story plays out. It's not the most polished RPG, but it has heart and gives you the freedom to approach problems your way. If you're into open world games that reward exploration and don't mind a bit of roughness, Elex II can be surprisingly addictive. It's not for everyone, but once it clicks, it's hard to put down. Kenshi. Kenshi is the kind of game that doesn't look like much at first glance, but once it grabs you, it doesn't let go. It's an open world sandbox RPG where the only goal is survival. There's no grand story, no hero's journey, just you, a brutal world, and the choices you make to carve out a life. You start with almost nothing. Your character is weak, broke, and at the mercy of the harsh wasteland. From there, it's entirely up to you. Do you become a trader running goods between towns? A wandering mercenary? A farmer building a small settlement? The game doesn't push you in any direction, and that freedom is addictive. Combat is tough but rewarding. You'll lose fights early and often, but instead of dying outright, you might get dragged off to recover or enslaved, forcing you to plan an escape. Every injury and scar tells a story, and the game's willingness to let you fail makes the victories feel earned. The world is alive and doesn't wait for you. Factions rise and fall, towns go to war, and characters live their own lives whether you interact with them or not. It's a tough, unforgiving environment, but that's what makes it so engaging. Kenshi isn't about flashy graphics or hand-holding, it's about creating your own story in a harsh, open-ended world. It's slow, challenging, and endlessly rewarding for players who love to figure things out on their own. Greedfall. Greedfall is a hidden gem for fans of story-driven RPGs. It's set in a 17th century inspired world with a unique twist colonial powers, exploring a mysterious island filled with magic, strange creatures, and indigenous tribes. You play as Sarday, a diplomat trying to navigate tense political factions, forge alliances, and uncover the island's secrets. What makes Greedfall addictive is how it balances exploration, story, and choice. The world feels rich and alive, with towns, forests, and ancient ruins begging to be explored. It's not open world in the traditional sense, but each area is packed with details and quests that often give you multiple ways to solve problems. Combat mixes melee, ranged, and magic, letting you customize your character to suit your style. Whether you prefer swinging a sword, casting spells, or using traps and firearms, the game gives you room to experiment. And while combat is fun, diplomacy and dialogue play just as big a role. Your choices shape relationships with factions and characters, which can impact how the story unfolds.
is the only son of the Prince d'Orsay.
The writing and characters are the real draw. The factions have complex motivations, and your companions, each with their own stories and goals, add depth to the journey. The game doesn't shy away from moral gray areas, making your decisions feel meaningful. Greedfall isn't perfect, some mechanics feel dated, and the pacing can drag, but it offers a compelling blend of exploration, character building, and narrative. If you like RPGs that give you freedom to play your way, it's worth diving into. The Surge 2. The Surge 2 is one of those games that sneaks up on you with how addictive it can be. It's a sci-fi action RPG set in the ruins of a dystopian city overrun by rogue machines, crazed survivors, and nanotech horrors. You wake up in a hospital after a mysterious plane crash and are thrown into a brutal fight for survival. The combat is where the game hooks you. It's methodical and precise, much like Dark Souls, but with its own twist targeting specific enemy body parts. Want a new weapon or armor? You'll need to focus attacks on an enemy's arm or leg, cut it off, and claim it for yourself. It's a risk-reward system that keeps fights tense and rewarding. The world feels alive, even in its desolation. Jericho City is a sprawling, interconnected map full of shortcuts, secrets, and challenging enemies. Exploration is rewarding, with plenty of upgrades, crafting materials, and lore to discover. The level design encourages curiosity without feeling overwhelming. The progression system keeps you coming back. You'll constantly tweak your exo-rig, experiment with implants, and adapt your loadout to suit your playstyle. Every upgrade feels earned, and the constant cycle of exploration, combat, and improvement is hard to put down. While the story isn't its strongest point, The Surge 2 shines in its gameplay loop and world design. If you're into challenging action RPGs with a unique combat system, this one can easily pull you in and keep you playing for hours. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Middle-earth: Shadow of War takes the foundation of its predecessor and cranks everything up. You return as Talion, still bonded to the Wraith Celebrimbor, and your mission is simple: raise an army, take down Sauron, and claim Mordor for yourself. What makes this game addictive is the Nemesis system. It takes orc captains and turns them into dynamic rivals. Every fight, victory, or defeat changes your relationship with them. Orcs remember past encounters, adapt to your tactics, and sometimes come back after you thought you killed them. Recruiting orcs to your army and watching them rise through the ranks or betray you is endlessly entertaining. The combat is fast, fluid, and satisfying. It builds on the Arkham style system but adds depth with new abilities, gear, and the thrill of commanding your own orc army. Fortress sieges are a standout feature, letting you lead your troops into massive battles to conquer enemy strongholds. The open world is sprawling, with distinct regions full of collectibles, side missions, and secrets. While the story doesn't break much new ground, it's enough to keep you moving through the world. The interplay between Talion and Celebrimbor adds tension, especially as their goals begin to diverge. Shadow of War can feel overwhelming at first with all its systems and mechanics, but once you settle in, it's easy to lose hours building your army and plotting your next siege. If you enjoy dynamic gameplay where the world responds to your actions, this one is hard to put down. Deliver Us the Moon. Deliver Us the Moon is a quieter kind of game, but it sneaks up on you with how engaging it becomes. It's a sci-fi adventure that places you in the role of an astronaut sent to the moon to save humanity from an energy crisis. The story is straightforward but compelling, exploring themes of isolation, sacrifice, and hope. What makes the game addictive is the way it unfolds. You're piecing together the mystery of what went wrong at the lunar base. Through logs, holograms, and abandoned spaces, you uncover the fate of the crew and the decisions that led to this crisis. It's a mix of exploration and puzzle solving that keeps you moving forward, always curious about what's next. The gameplay balances simplicity with immersion. You navigate zero-gravity sections, solve environmental puzzles, and occasionally manage life or death situations like oxygen shortages. It's not overly challenging, but the tension and atmosphere make every moment feel significant.
We used to call it home.
We're close, William.
Visually, the game is stunning. The lunar landscapes and the empty halls of the base are beautifully designed, creating a sense of awe and loneliness. The sound design enhances this with a subtle, haunting score that underscores the emptiness of space. Deliver Us the Moon doesn't rely on action or flashy mechanics. Instead, it pulls you in with its story, atmosphere, and the satisfaction of discovery. It's a short experience, but one that sticks with you, making it a great choice for anyone who loves thoughtful, immersive games. Mad Max. Mad Max doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it nails the atmosphere of its wasteland setting and delivers a game that's surprisingly addictive. You play as Max, a lone survivor trying to build the ultimate car, the Magnum Opus, while surviving the brutality of the post-apocalypse. What hooks you is the world. The wasteland is vast, barren, and oddly beautiful, filled with sandstorms, towering cliffs, and remnants of a world gone by. Exploring it feels rewarding, whether you're scavenging for scraps, raiding enemy camps, or uncovering hidden relics from the past. The car combat stands out. You'll spend a lot of time in your Magnum Opus, upgrading it with weapons, armor, and speed boosts to take on raiders and warlords. The battles are chaotic and fun, with harpoons and flamethrowers turning every skirmish into a high-octane spectacle. On foot, the combat leans heavily on the Arkham-style brawling system. It's simple but satisfying with brutal finishers that make each fight feel gritty and impactful. The game also gives you plenty of upgrades for Max himself, letting you improve his gear and survival abilities. The story is straightforward, a revenge tale with a focus on survival and redemption, but it's enough to keep you invested. The characters you meet, especially your quirky mechanic sidekick Chumbucket, add personality and depth to the experience. Mad Max is a game that understands its world and makes you want to spend time in it. Between the car combat, exploration, and sheer sense of atmosphere, it's easy to lose hours just surviving and thriving in the wasteland. Prey 2017. Prey 2017 is one of those games that hooks you with its atmosphere and keeps you engaged with its freedom to experiment. Set on the sprawling Talos 1 space station, you play as Morgan Yu, waking up to discover that the station has been overrun by shape-shifting alien creatures called the Typhon. The mystery of what went wrong and who you can trust drives the story forward. The gameplay feels like a modern twist on classic immersive sims like System Shock and Deus Ex. You're given tools, abilities, and choices, and how you approach problems is entirely up to you. Sneak through vents, hack locked doors, or go in guns blazing, it's all valid. The Typhon abilities you can unlock, like mimicking objects or creating energy blasts, add another layer of creativity. The station itself is a character. It's beautifully designed with interconnected areas that reward exploration and a sense of discovery. Finding hidden pathways, reading logs, and piecing together the lives of the crew adds depth to the world and makes Talos 1 feel alive, even with its eerie emptiness. Combat is tense, the Typhon are unpredictable, and the mimics can turn into everyday objects, keeping you on edge. Resources are limited, so every encounter feels like a decision fight, run or find another way. Prey thrives on its ability to let you play your way. Whether you focus on exploration, combat, or uncovering every piece of the story, it keeps pulling you back in. If you're into games that reward curiosity and creativity, it's an experience you won't forget. Bright Memory Infinite. Bright Memory Infinite is a fast-paced, visually stunning first-person shooter that mixes gunplay with melee combat in a way that feels fresh and fluid. You play as Shelia, an operative for the Supernatural Science Research Organization, sent to stop a mysterious phenomenon that's tearing through the sky and connecting dimensions. The plot? It's wild, chaotic, and more of a backdrop for the action than a central focus. The real star here is the gameplay. You seamlessly switch between firing guns, slashing enemies with a sword, and using special abilities like grappling or energy bursts. It's all about momentum, stringing together combos, and mixing ranged and melee attacks keeps every encounter engaging. The combat feels like a mix of Doom and Devil May Cry with its focus on speed and style. Visually, the game is a treat. From futuristic cityscapes to lush ancient ruins, every environment looks sharp and detailed, showcasing the power of its small development team. The fast-paced action and cinematic flair make it feel like you're playing through a blockbuster movie. That said, it's a short experience clocking in at just a few hours, but what's there is polished and replayable with enough variety in combat to keep you coming back. Bright Memory Infinite is for players who want fast, stylish action without a heavy time commitment. It's not deep or long, but it's a burst of fun and spectacle that's hard to ignore. If you're into fast-paced shooters with a bit of flair, it's well worth checking out. Pathologic 2. Pathologic 2 is an intense survival horror RPG that challenges you in ways most games don't. You play as a healer returning to your plague-stricken hometown to confront a mysterious illness that's tearing through the population. It's not just about survival, it's about tough choices, limited resources, and the constant pressure of time slipping away. The gameplay puts you in a constant state of tension. Food, water, medicine, and sleep are all scarce, and managing your own health while trying to save others feels like an impossible task. Every decision matters. Do you spend precious time helping a stranger, or do you focus on keeping yourself alive? The town itself feels alive in the worst way. Its streets are grim and oppressive, filled with desperate people and eerie sounds. The atmosphere is suffocating, but it draws you in. The NPCs you meet have their own goals and personalities, and their fates often hinge on your actions or inaction. The storytelling is cryptic and surreal, filled with moral ambiguity and philosophical undertones. It doesn't spoon-feed you answers, which makes every discovery feel personal and meaningful. The plague itself becomes a character, an ever-present threat that forces you to confront your limits. Pathologic 2 isn't for everyone. It's brutally difficult and emotionally draining, but that's exactly the point. If you're willing to embrace the challenge, it's one of the most unique and rewarding experiences you'll find. It's not just a game, it's a test of how far you're willing to go to make impossible choices.
Make haste, son. I truly need you.
Vampire. Vampire puts you in the shoes of Dr. Jonathan Reed, a newly turned vampire in 1918 London during a deadly flu epidemic. As a doctor, your duty is to save lives, but as a vampire, your survival depends on taking them. That moral conflict lies at the heart of the game. The gameplay is a mix of combat, exploration, and dialogue. You'll roam the streets of a beautifully atmospheric, plague-ridden London, investigating mysteries, treating the sick, and fighting off hostile vampires and hunters. The combat lets you use melee weapons, firearms, and vampiric powers, but it's the decisions you make outside of fights that truly shape your experience. Here's the twist: the more people you kill, the stronger you become. Each citizen you meet has a backstory and relationships, and feeding on them can lead to dramatic changes in their community. Do you sacrifice your humanity for power, or try to navigate the game as a healer with a clean conscience? The game doesn't make it easy, and the consequences of your actions ripple through the story. The narrative is engaging, digging into themes of morality, identity, and the weight of your choices. The characters are well written, and the branching dialogue paths give you plenty of room to shape your story. While Vampire isn't perfect, the combat can feel repetitive, and some mechanics are a bit clunky. It's a game that rewards patience and moral contemplation. If you enjoy stories that force you to grapple with tough decisions, this one will keep you hooked. It's dark, moody, and refreshingly different. Hardspace Shipbreaker.
Your mic's still messed up.
Hardspace Shipbreaker is one of those games that turns a simple concept into something unexpectedly addictive. You're a blue-collar worker in space, dismantling massive derelict ships to pay off a crushing debt to a mega corporation. The setup is straightforward, but the execution is where the magic happens. The gameplay revolves around precision and strategy. Armed with a laser cutter and a grappling tool, you float through zero gravity, slicing apart ships piece by piece. You'll separate valuable materials from scrap, avoid hazardous components like explosive fuel tanks, and carefully maneuver the parts into designated zones. It's a mix of puzzle solving, resource management, and risk-taking that keeps you engaged.
Jobs and opportunities.
Each ship presents a new challenge. Early on, you'll deal with smaller, simpler vessels, but as you progress, the ships get larger and more complex. Mistakes can be costly, an explosion or misplaced cut can ruin your day, or worse, get you killed. The game rewards careful planning, but also lets you experiment, which keeps the process fresh. The atmosphere pulls you in, the hum of your tools, the crackle of comms chatter, and the quiet vastness of space create an immersive work environment. The story, while subtle, touches on corporate exploitation and the human side of labor, adding depth to your role. Hard Space Shipbreaker is a slow burn, but its loop of problem solving and progression is deeply satisfying. If you enjoy games that let you master a craft and take pride in your work, it's easy to lose hours breaking apart ships and perfecting your technique. Sherlock Holmes, the Devil's Daughter.
You see that she must never know.
I don't understand anything!
Sherlock Holmes, the Devil's Daughter is an intriguing blend of detective work, exploration, and light action sequences that offers a fresh take on the iconic detective. You step into the shoes of Sherlock as he solves 5 cases, each with its own twists, suspects, and moral dilemmas. The gameplay revolves around investigating crime scenes, piecing together clues, and questioning suspects. The deduction board is the centerpiece where you link clues to form conclusions. What makes it engaging is that you can arrive at different outcomes based on how you interpret the evidence, leading to varying resolutions for each case. The game adds some variety with action and stealth sequences. While they're not as polished as the detective mechanics, they help break up the slower moments. Puzzles also play a significant role, requiring logic and observation to progress, which keeps things interesting. The Victorian London setting is richly detailed, immersing you in the time period with its cobbled streets, dimly lit alleys, and atmospheric interiors. The story, while not as tight as previous entries in the series, dives into Sherlock's personal life, adding some emotional weight to the usual cerebral investigations. Sherlock Holmes, the Devil's Daughter isn't without its flaws. Some mechanics feel clunky, and the pacing can be uneven, but it captures the essence of being a detective. If you enjoy solving mysteries and piecing together stories, it's an engaging experience that keeps you thinking. Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 is one of those games that set the bar for open world shooters, and it still holds up incredibly well. Released in 2012, it drops you into the chaotic, tropical paradise of the Rook Islands, a place where danger lurks behind every palm tree and survival becomes personal. You play as Jason Brody, a regular guy who's thrown into a brutal world of pirates, mercenaries, and insanity after a vacation goes horribly wrong. What starts as a desperate fight for survival quickly spirals into a dark descent as Jason becomes someone he hardly recognizes. The story is unforgettable, especially thanks to one of gaming's most iconic villains. Vaz isn't just some faceless bad guy, he's twisted, unpredictable, and downright terrifying, and his presence alone makes every encounter feel like it could end badly.
Oh, Jesus.
The gameplay gives you freedom like few other shooters do. Whether you're sneaking through enemy camps, setting fire to fields, or taking down wild animals with a bow, there's always something to keep you on your toes. The open world is packed with activities from hunting to crafting that make you feel like you're part of this dangerous, vibrant ecosystem. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain is a masterclass in open-world design and stealth mechanics that redefines what players can expect from the genre. As Big Boss, you're dropped into the chaotic landscape of Afghanistan during the 1980s, tasked with building an army, completing missions, and unraveling a complex narrative filled with betrayal and ambition. The game's open-world environment is vast and richly detailed, allowing for an incredible level of freedom in how you approach each mission. Whether you prefer stealth, direct combat, or utilizing the environment to your advantage, the choice is yours. The addition of the buddy system, where you can bring companions like D-Dog or Quiet, adds layers to your gameplay strategy. What truly stands out is the storytelling. Though fragmented at times, it dives deep into themes of war, trauma, and the consequences of one's actions. The emotional weight of the characters and their struggles adds depth to the chaotic backdrop. With its stunning graphics, engaging gameplay, and complex narrative, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain is an unforgettable experience that invites players to relive the intricacies of war and the shadows that linger in the human psyche. It's a game that stays with you long after you've left the battlefield, making it a must-play in 2024. Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs is an electrifying open-world action game that transports you to the vibrant streets of Hong Kong, blending intense martial arts combat with a gripping crime story. You play as Wei Shen, an undercover cop tasked with infiltrating the Sun on Yi Triad organization. The game strikes a perfect balance between an engaging narrative and adrenaline-fueled gameplay. What sets Sleeping Dogs apart is its emphasis on hand-to-hand combat, which feels fluid and dynamic. You can take down enemies using a variety of martial arts moves, and the game encourages you to use the environment to your advantage, whether it's slamming an opponent into a wall or grabbing weapons from nearby. The driving mechanics are equally satisfying, letting you zip through the bustling streets of Hong Kong while feeling the weight of the city around you. The storyline is immersive, filled with twists, betrayals, and moments that make you question Wei's loyalty to the police versus his ties to the Triads. The richly detailed open world is filled with side activities, from street races to martial arts challenges, that keep the gameplay fresh and engaging. Sleeping Dogs may not have garnered as much attention as other open world games, but it's an unforgettable experience that captures the essence of crime dramas and martial arts films. With its compelling narrative, unique combat system, and stunning depiction of Hong Kong, it's definitely a game worth revisiting in 2024. Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is an iconic masterpiece that captivates with its breathtaking landscapes and hauntingly simple yet profound story. You step into the shoes of Wander, a young man on a quest to revive a girl named Mono, who has been sacrificed. To do this, you must defeat colossal beings scattered across a vast, desolate land. Each encounter is an epic battle against the giants, requiring strategy, skill, and a sense of awe. What sets this game apart is its emotional weight. The Colossi are not just obstacles to overcome, they're magnificent creatures that evoke a mix of wonder and sorrow. As you climb their massive bodies, the sheer scale of these beings emphasizes the loneliness of your mission. It raises questions about sacrifice, the cost of ambition, and the nature of life and death. The art direction is stunning, with beautifully crafted environments that feel both ancient and timeless. The minimalist soundtrack complements the atmosphere, creating a sense of isolation that draws you deeper into the world. Every moment feels deliberate, and the game's pacing allows for reflection between the intense battles. Shadow of the Colossus is more than just a game, it's an experience that resonates with players long after the final Colossus has fallen. It's a hauntingly beautiful journey that deserves to be revisited, making it a truly unforgettable title that captures the essence of what gaming can be. Nier Automata. Nier Automata is a thought-provoking blend of action, philosophy, and stunning artistry that leaves a lasting impression. Set in a post-apocalyptic world where androids battle alien machines for the remnants of humanity, you play as 2B, a battle-ready android alongside her companion 9S. The narrative is rich and layered, exploring themes of existence, purpose, and the blurred lines between humans and machines. What makes this game truly special is how it intertwines gameplay with deep storytelling. Each playthrough reveals new perspectives, adding layers to the characters in the world. You'll find yourself questioning the nature of consciousness and the ethics of artificial intelligence as you progress through the story. The emotional depth of the narrative is complemented by memorable characters like the enigmatic A2 and the charmingly quirky Pod. The gameplay is a mix of fast-paced combat and RPG elements with fluid mechanics that keep battles engaging, the variety in combat styles, and the ability to customize your character's abilities add to the experience, making every encounter feel fresh. The game also boasts a stunning soundtrack that beautifully enhances the atmosphere with haunting melodies that stay with you long after you've put the controller down. Max Payne 3. Max Payne 3 is a gritty, hard-hitting return to the beloved series that redefined the action genre with its unique blend of noir storytelling and stylish gameplay. This installment finds Max, now a weary and disillusioned former detective, living in Sao Paulo, Brazil, working as a private security contractor. Right from the start, the game immerses you in a dark world filled with crime, betrayal, and violence. The storytelling is top-notch, delivered through Max's trademark gritty narration and a series of flashbacks that reveal his troubled past. The game dives deep into themes of loss, redemption, and the psychological toll of violence. You can feel Max's pain and weariness with every quip and monologue, making him one of the most relatable anti-heroes in gaming.
I hated the world for not killing me with her.
Gameplay-wise, Max Payne 3 excels with its signature bullet time mechanic, allowing you to slow down time and dodge bullets while delivering stylish takedowns. The gunplay feels satisfying with a variety of weapons at your disposal, and the game's mechanics make every firefight exhilarating. The visuals are stunning, capturing the vibrant yet dangerous atmosphere of Sao Paulo, with beautifully designed levels that keep you engaged throughout. What sets Max Payne 3 apart is its cinematic approach. Every action sequence feels like a scene from a gritty action film. The combination of a compelling narrative, engaging gameplay, and unforgettable atmosphere makes it a standout title in the series. For fans of action games and noir storytelling, revisiting Max Payne 3 in 2024 is a must, as it remains a defining entry in the genre that perfectly balances style and substance. Dying Light. Dying Light is a thrilling survival horror game that takes the zombie apocalypse and turns it into an adrenaline-pumping parkour experience. Set in a quarantine city overrun by the infected, you play as Kyle Crane, an undercover agent trying to infiltrate a group of survivors while navigating a world that becomes increasingly dangerous as night falls. What makes Dying Light stand out is its dynamic day-night cycle. During the day, you can explore the open world, complete missions, and scavenge for supplies, but as the sun sets, the infected become more aggressive and terrifying. This shift changes the entire gameplay dynamic, forcing you to strategize your movements and use the parkour mechanics to your advantage as you scale rooftops and escape the horrors lurking below. The parkour system is fluid and satisfying, giving you a real sense of freedom as you navigate the urban environment. Jumping, climbing, and vaulting your way through the city is not only fun but essential for survival. The crafting system also adds depth, allowing you to create weapons and traps that are vital for combating the relentless hordes. Dying Light isn't just about action, it also weaves in a story filled with moral choices and characters you can care about. The interactions with the survivors you meet and the decisions you make can shape your experience, adding a layer of emotional weight to the gameplay. Rise of the Tomb Raider. Rise of the Tomb Raider is an exhilarating adventure that expands on Lara Croft's journey, blending action, exploration, and intricate storytelling. As Lara embarks on a quest to uncover the secrets of the legendary city of Kaitish, you're treated to breathtaking environments from snow-covered mountains to lush, hidden tombs. What really sets this game apart is its focus on Lara's character development. You witness her transformation from an inexperienced survivor into a fierce, capable adventurer. The narrative explores themes of legacy and the cost of discovery, delving deeper into Lara's motivations and the impact of her journey on those around her. The gameplay strikes a perfect balance between exploration, puzzle solving, and intense combat. The world is packed with secrets, and the various tombs offer cleverly designed puzzles that challenge you to think critically. The addition of crafting and survival mechanics enhances the experience, allowing you to gather resources and customize your equipment as you navigate the dangers of the wild.
There must be, or Trinity wouldn't be in this snowy hell.
Visually, Rise of the Tomb Raider is stunning. The detailed graphics bring the environments to life, creating a sense of immersion that draws you into Lara's world. The action sequences are thrilling, filled with cinematic moments that keep your heart racing. Overall, Rise of the Tomb Raider is a must-play for fans of action-adventure games. It's a beautifully crafted journey that combines exploration, storytelling, and intense action, making it an unforgettable experience to relive in 2024. Wolfenstein The New Order. Wolfenstein The New Order is an exhilarating experience that brings the fight against the Nazis to a whole new level. You step into the worn-out boots of BJ Blazkowicz, a soldier who's seen hell and back, as you battle through an alternate history where the Nazis won World War II. The opening sequence is a gut punch, dragging you straight into the chaos of war and setting the stage for the intense journey ahead. What sets this game apart isn't just the explosive gunplay or the arsenal of wild weapons, it's the rich narrative that unfolds alongside the mayhem. Blazkowicz is more than just a killing machine, he's a character shaped by loss and resilience, and his story dives into the darker sides of human experience while still delivering some genuine moments of hope and camaraderie.
Come in, Berlin. What's your status?
The gameplay is a fluid mix of stealth and action, allowing you to choose your approach. Want to sneak around and take out enemies quietly? Go for it. Prefer to go in guns blazing and create chaos? That's just as satisfying. The environments are diverse, filled with secrets and surprises, making every mission feel fresh and engaging. In a nutshell, Wolfenstein The New Order isn't just about shooting Nazis, it's a thrilling rollercoaster of a story that combines heart, humor, and pure, unfiltered action. It's an unforgettable ride that deserves a replay in 2024, especially if you're looking for a game that packs an emotional punch alongside the adrenaline. Quantum Break. Quantum Break is a captivating blend of interactive storytelling and gameplay that challenges the conventions of the action genre. You step into the shoes of Jack Joyce, a man who gains time manipulating abilities after a failed time travel experiment. The narrative unfolds like a gripping television series, with each chapter interspersed with live-action episodes that deepen the story and expand the universe. What makes Quantum Break stand out is its innovative approach to storytelling. As you navigate Jack's journey, your choices influence both the gameplay and the show, creating a unique interplay between player decisions and narrative outcomes. This dual structure keeps you engaged as you see the consequences of your actions reflected in the lives of the characters around you. The time manipulation mechanics are both fun and strategic, allowing you to freeze enemies, create time shields, and navigate the world in dynamic ways. The visuals are stunning, showcasing beautifully crafted environments that highlight the contrast between the chaotic moments of action and the quieter, more introspective scenes. Mafia 2. Mafia 2 is a gripping tale of loyalty, crime, and the gritty reality of life in the mob. Set in the 1940s and 50s, it follows the story of Vito Scaletta, a young man trying to escape his tough upbringing and make a name for himself in the criminal underworld of Empire Bay. From the get-go, you're pulled into a world that feels rich and alive, with attention to detail that makes you feel like you're really living in that era. What really stands out in Mafia 2 is its story. It's not just about the flashy cars and the heists, it's about Vito's journey and the relationships he builds along the way. You watch him evolve from a hopeful kid with big dreams to a hardened mobster dealing with the consequences of his choices. The game does an excellent job of capturing the emotional highs and lows of Vito's life, making you genuinely care about his fate. The gameplay is a mix of action and exploration, with a focus on shooting and driving that feels satisfying. The combat is solid and the driving mechanics give you that classic feel of cruising through a beautifully recreated city. Plus, the soundtrack is spot on, with a fantastic selection of music that perfectly captures the vibe of the time.
The working man's a sucker, that's for damn sure.
Ryse Son of Rome. Ryse Son of Rome might be from 2013, but it still looks like a game from the future. The visuals were mind-blowing when it launched, and they still hold up today. Every detail from the armor to the massive battlefields looks incredible. You play as Marius Titus, a Roman soldier out for revenge, and the game throws you right into brutal, cinematic combat that makes every fight feel like it's straight out of a movie. The combat is simple but satisfying. It's all about timing your attacks, blocks, and executions, and those finishers are brutal in the best way. Yeah, it's a bit repetitive, but the presentation is so good, it's hard to care. Each fight feels like part of this larger epic story. The story itself has some real weight. It's about loyalty, betrayal, and revenge, with Marius fighting through one of the most turbulent times in Roman history. The performances bring it all to life, and the pacing keeps things moving without dragging. Even now, Ryse feels ahead of its time in how it handles scale. The massive battles, the detailed environments, and the way the camera pans across the action, it's all seamless. Sure, it's not the deepest game, but it's such a spectacle that it's easy to get lost in the experience. If you're looking for a game that still feels fresh and can show off what your PC or console can do, Ryse Son of Rome is a no-brainer. It's short, but it's a ride you won't forget. Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception. Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception is a perfect example of a game that hasn't aged a bit. Released in 2011, it still feels like a modern action-adventure with its cinematic storytelling, incredible set pieces, and sharp gameplay. This time around, Nathan Drake's journey dives deeper into his past, focusing on his bond with Sully and a hunt for the legendary lost city of Ubar, the Atlantis of the Sands. The set pieces in this game are insane, even by today's standards. You've got the collapsing chateau, the unforgettable cargo plane sequence, and the desert trek that's as much about survival as it is about spectacle. These moments feel larger than life, but they never overshadow the personal story underneath it all. Combat and traversal are still rock solid. The mix of third-person shooting, melee combat, and parkour keeps things fast-paced and fun. The gunfights feel snappy, and the melee system adds a layer of brawling that feels weighty and satisfying. On the exploration side, climbing, jumping, and solving puzzles across ancient ruins and hidden chambers feels just as fresh as ever. What really makes Uncharted 3 stand out though is its characters. The banter between Drake and Sully is pitch perfect, and the introduction of new foes like Catherine Marlowe adds a layer of intrigue and tension. The story balances humor, drama, and high-stakes action in a way that keeps you hooked from start to finish. And let's not forget the world design. The locations are stunning, from bustling Middle Eastern cities to scorching deserts and lush ruins. The attention to detail is incredible, making every place feel alive and part of a larger world. Even the quieter moments like Drake and Sully reminiscing or piecing together clues help ground the over-the-top adventure. Uncharted 3's remastered version in the Nathan Drake collection brings it up to modern standards with polished visuals and smoother performance, but even the original holds up incredibly well. It's a game that combines heart-pounding action with a strong narrative, making it just as fun to play today as it was when it first came out. Whether you're revisiting it or diving in for the first time, this is an adventure that still feels timeless. Infamous Second Son. Infamous Second Son puts you in the shoes of Delsin Rowe, a young guy who suddenly finds himself with superpowers and a big choice fight for freedom or take the darker path. The game is set in Seattle, and it does a great job making the city feel alive. Even if it's not the biggest open world out there, you've got all these cool powers, and honestly, they're what make the game so fun. Smoke lets you dash around or launch through vents, neon gives you insane speed and precision, and concrete, well, that's for when you're ready to smash everything in sight. The story's pretty solid. It's about Delsin figuring out who he is and what kind of person he wants to be. The choices you make, whether to help people or just go full chaos mode, change how characters react to you and what kind of hero or anti-hero you become. It's not super deep, but it gets the job done, especially with how much personality Delsin and his brother Reggie bring to the table. Their back and forth feels real, like actual brothers messing with each other while still looking out for one one another. Combat is all about freedom. You can go in loud, mix up your powers, or pick enemies off while flying around the city. Switching between abilities is seamless, and each one feels unique. It's not just about fighting either. Zipping up buildings and jumping across rooftops is so smooth it makes just moving around fun. The side content adds to the experience without feeling like a chore. There's tagging walls with graffiti dozens and artists after all, breaking up enemy strongholds, and these smaller moments that make you feel like part of the world. It's not overloaded with busy work, which keeps things focused on the fun. Visually, the game does a great job showing off Seattle's rain-soaked streets, neon lights, and grungy vibe. Even the smallest details like the graffiti spray or the way powers look when you use them make everything pop. Infamous Second Son is just a fun game to dive into. The story's engaging enough to pull you through, but the real joy is just messing around with the powers and seeing how far you can push things. Psychonauts 2005. Psychonauts is one of those games that's just pure creativity from start to finish. You play as Rasputin Razzaquato, a kid with psychic powers who sneaks into a summer camp for psychic trainees. What starts as a fun adventure about learning new powers quickly turns into a wild journey through the minds of some truly unforgettable characters. The big hook of the game is how each level takes place inside someone's mind. These aren't your standard platformer levels, each one is completely unique, shaped by the personality, fears, and quirks of the person whose brain you're exploring. One minute you're sneaking through a conspiracy-filled suburb in a paranoid mind, and the next you're a giant monster stomping through a city in a kaiju-style level. The variety is insane, and it keeps the game fresh all the way through. Gameplay-wise, it's a mix of platforming, exploration, and using your psychic powers in creative ways. You can float on a psychic bubble, set things on fire with pyrokinesis, or even read people's minds. The controls can feel a little dated at times, but the sheer inventiveness of the levels makes up for it. The camp acts as your hub world, and it's packed with secrets to find and quirky campers to meet. Exploring it between missions is almost as fun as diving into someone's brain. There's always something weird or funny happening, and the art style makes it all feel like a living, breathing cartoon. Psychonauts is the kind of game that sticks with you. It's not just about the platforming or the powers, it's about the sheer creativity and charm packed into every moment. Whether you're playing it for the first time or revisiting it, it's one of the most unique and imaginative games ever made. The Last of Us. The Last of Us is more than just a game, it's a story that sticks with you long after you're done playing. You follow Joel, a broken man with a tragic past, and Ellie, a young girl who might just hold the key to humanity's survival, as they travel across a brutal post-apocalyptic America. The relationship between these two is the heart of the game, and watching it grow feels so real and raw, it's hard not to get emotionally invested. The gameplay is intense, balancing stealth and survival. Resources are scarce, so every bullet, every crafting decision matters. Whether you're sneaking past clickers or fighting off desperate humans, the tension is always high. Combat feels brutal and personal, but it's not over the top, it's grounded, which makes every encounter feel dangerous. The world is a mix of beauty and decay. Overgrown cities, abandoned homes, and hauntingly quiet streets tell their own stories. Exploring isn't just about scavenging supplies, it's about soaking in the atmosphere and piecing together the lives of the people who used to live there. The writing and performances are what really make The Last of Us stand out. Joel and Ellie feel like real people thanks to the incredible voice acting and attention to detail in their interactions. The dialogue is sharp and natural, and the story pulls no punches. It's dark, heartbreaking, and full of moments that make you stop and think. This isn't just a game about zombies or infected. It's about humanity, how far people will go to survive, the bonds we form, and the lines we're willing to cross. It's heavy, but that's what makes it so unforgettable. Even years later, The Last of Us holds up because it's not just about gameplay, it's about the experience. Whether you're diving in for the first time or replaying it, it's a journey worth taking.
I got this.
Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain is one of those games that pulls you in with its story and doesn't let go. It's a psychological thriller where every decision you make has consequences, and those consequences can completely change how the game plays out. The story revolves around the Origami Killer, a serial murderer targeting children, and you play as 4 different characters, each with their own connection to the case. What makes Heavy Rain stand out is how personal it feels. There are no do-overs here. If a character dies, the story moves on without them. Every choice, every quick time event, every piece of dialogue carries weight. It's not just about solving the mystery, it's about how you navigate the emotions and dilemmas of each character. The game does an amazing job creating tension. Whether you're crawling through broken glass, confronting a suspect, or rushing to save someone's life, it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's not about shooting or fighting, it's about reacting in the moment, and that makes every scene feel intense and real. The characters themselves are what make the story so engaging. There's Ethan, a father searching for his missing son Madison, a journalist digging into the case Norman, an FBI profiler with his own demons, and Scott, a private investigator who feels like he's seen it all. Their paths cross in ways that feel natural, and the game does a great job of making you care about what happens to them. Visually, Heavy Rain still holds up, especially with the remastered versions. The moody lighting, rain-soaked streets, and detailed facial animations all add to the atmosphere. It's not a huge world, but it's packed with small details that make it feel alive. This isn't a game about winning, it's about the story you create through your choices. It's emotional, suspenseful, and full of twists that'll keep you guessing until the very end. If you're into narrative-driven games that make you think, Heavy Rain is an experience you won't forget.
Are you the killer, Ethan?
The killer is walking around free as we speak.
Ethan Mars is innocent.
I can prove it.
Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 isn't just a game, it's an experience that rewrote the rules for first-person shooters. Released in 2004, it still feels modern because of how well it handles storytelling, gameplay, and world building without ever pulling you out of the action. You play as Gordon Freeman, the silent scientist turned revolutionary fighting against the alien Combine regime that's turned Earth into a dystopian nightmare. The pacing is what makes this game timeless. It's not just non-stop shooting, there are quiet moments of exploration, puzzle solving, and just soaking in the world. 1 minute you're battling combined forces in tight corridors, and the next you're driving across a desolate highway or navigating a creepy zombie-filled town like Ravenholm. Every section feels different, but it all flows together so smoothly. And then there's the gravity gun. It's one of the most iconic weapons in gaming, letting you pick up and throw objects in creative and often ridiculous ways. It's not just a gimmick, it's woven into combat and puzzles, making you think about the environment in ways most shooters never bother with. The world building is incredible. City 17 feels oppressive and lived in, with the Combine's brutal architecture towering over rundown neighborhoods. The resistance fighters and random citizens you meet don't just exist to fill space, they make the world feel alive. You don't need endless exposition because everything from the design of the enemies to the scraps of propaganda you see tells you exactly what kind of world you're in. Even now, Half-Life 2 holds up because it's not just about flashy visuals or complicated mechanics, it's about creating a world you believe in and giving you the tools to have fun in it. Whether you're solving physics puzzles, taking down striders, or just listening to the eerie soundscapes, the game never stops being engaging. It's a classic for a reason and still worth playing today, whether you're revisiting it or diving in for the first time. Dragon Age Origins. Dragon Age Origins is the kind of RPG that doesn't come around often. It's rich in story, packed with tough decisions, and gives you the freedom to shape your adventure in a way that feels personal. You start as a Grey Warden, part of an Ancient Order tasked with stopping the Blight, a catastrophic event where Darkspawn rise from underground to destroy everything in their path. But The story isn't just about saving the world, it's about the people you meet, the choices you make, and the consequences you live with. One of the game's biggest strengths is its origins system. The story begins differently depending on your race and class, whether you're a noble dwarf and elf living in the slums, or a mage trapped in a strict magical tower. These backstories aren't just throwaway introductions, they shape how the world and its characters react to you, making every playthrough feel unique. Combat is tactical and satisfying. You can pause the action to issue commands to your party, planning out every move, or you can jump right into the fray and fight in real time. Each companion brings something different to the table. Alistair's tanking abilities, Morrigan's devastating magic, or Lyanna's sneaky backstabbing, and learning how to use your party effectively is part of the fun. The choices you make carry weight. Do you help the werewolves or side with the elves? Will you allow a demon to possess someone to save a life? Even the ending depends on your decisions, making it feel like your story rather than one you're just watching unfold. The world of Ferelden is gritty, dark, and full of lore. Every location from the spooky ruins of the Brazilian forest to the underground city of Orzammar feels alive, with history and conflict baked into every corner. You'll want to explore every inch, not just for the loot but to uncover the layers of the world. Dragon Age Origins doesn't just tell a story, it pulls you into one. It's a game where your choices matter, your companions feel like friends or enemies, and the world feels bigger than what's on the screen. If you haven't played it, you're missing out on one of the best RPGs ever made, and if you have, it's always worth another journey through Ferelden. Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 is the perfect mix of chaotic combat, sharp humor, and addictive loot hunting. It's a first-person shooter, but it's not just about pulling the trigger, it's about blowing stuff up in the most ridiculous ways possible while chasing that next big, shiny gun. Set on the planet of Pandora, you're a vault hunter on a mission to stop Handsome Jack, one of the most memorable and hilariously evil villains in gaming. The gameplay is fast, explosive, and endlessly fun. Guns are the star here, and there are millions of them, everything from sniper rifles that shoot fire to rocket launchers that explode into more rockets. No two guns feel the same, and finding one that suits your style is half the fun. The combat keeps you on your toes with waves of enemies, wild abilities, and co-op chaos if you're playing with friends. Each character class brings something unique to the table. Whether you're going stealthy with 0-0, dual wielding with Salvador, or summoning a turret with Axton, the game lets you play however you want. Skill trees give you tons of customization so you can focus on tanking, dealing damage, or supporting your squad. Pandora itself is packed with personality. It's not just about barren wastelands, there are frozen tundras, toxic swamps, and bustling bandit hideouts, each with its own vibe and crazy inhabitants. The game never takes itself too seriously, and that's part of the charm. The writing is full of sarcastic humor and one-liners, and the side missions are just as entertaining as the main story, whether you're taking down a giant monster or helping a psycho throw a tea party. Handsome Jack steals the show. He's a villain you love to hate, constantly taunting you over the radio with his smug, sarcastic remarks. He's a big part of why the story sticks with you. It's over the top, but it's also surprisingly engaging, especially when things get personal toward the end. What really makes Borderlands 2 timeless is how easy it is to pick up and play. Whether you're diving in solo or teaming up with friends, it's a game that's all about having fun. The loot, the humor, the non-stop action, it all comes together in a way that feels fresh no matter how many times you play. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is an open-world RPG that emphasizes exploration and problem-solving. You play as Link, tasked with defeating Calamity Ganon and restoring the Kingdom of Hyrule. The game gives you the freedom to tackle objectives in any order or ignore them entirely to explore the world at your own pace. Hyrule is a vast and detailed world. Every hill, forest, and ruin holds something to discover, from shrines that test your skills to puzzles that reward careful thinking. The game encourages experimentation with its physics system, whether you're using a boulder to to take out a group of enemies, or combining elements to create new paths. Combat feels straightforward but rewarding. Weapons degrade over time, pushing you to adapt and use what you find. The system encourages preparation, whether you're cooking meals to restore health or crafting elixirs for protection against harsh environments. Encounters test both timing and resourcefulness. The story is subtle but effective. Through memories scattered across the world, you learn about Zelda's struggles and the history of the kingdom. These moments add context without overshadowing your freedom to create your own journey. The divine beasts, each with their own challenges, provide structure without feeling restrictive. Breath of the Wild succeeds because it gives players space to explore, experiment, and engage with its systems in a meaningful way. It's a game that rewards curiosity and creativity, allowing you to approach challenges in ways that feel personal. If you enjoy open-world RPGs with a focus on freedom and discovery, this game is worth your time.
You must save her, my daughter.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is an open-world RPG set in ancient Greece during the Peloponnesian War. You play as Alexios or Cassandra, a mercenary working to uncover the truth about your family and your role in the conflict between Athens and Sparta. The game focuses on exploration, combat, and choices that shape your journey. The world is large and varied, with islands, cities, and villages to explore. You can climb mountains, sail the Aegean Sea, and visit historical landmarks. The game lets you approach its world at your own pace, discovering ruins, engaging in quests, or simply exploring for the sake of it. Combat is adaptable, letting you choose from a range of weapons and skills. You can focus on stealth, engage in direct fights, or use ranged attacks. The skill tree allows you to specialize in areas like assassination or melee combat. Naval combat also plays a role, with upgrades available for your ship and crew. The story includes dialogue choices that influence events and relationships. These decisions affect how characters interact with you and can change the outcomes of major quests. This approach encourages different playthroughs to see how your choices affect the story. The game blends history and mythology, offering encounters with figures like Socrates and legendary creatures such as the Cyclops. These elements create a balance between historical events and imaginative storytelling. Assassin's Creed Odyssey provides a detailed world and gives players control over how they engage with its story and systems. Its mix of exploration, choice, and combat makes it a solid choice for anyone interested in a historical RPG that allows for personal freedom and flexibility. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth continues the story of Cloudstrife and his companions as they venture beyond the city of Midgar into a wider, more open world. This is the second chapter of the reimagined Final Fantasy VII story, combining elements of the original with new twists that expand its scope. The game shifts its focus to exploration, with larger areas to traverse and more freedom in how you approach quests and objectives. Whether you're traveling through forests, mountains, or iconic locations like the calm town of Calm, the world feels interconnected and alive.
Past 5 years. Where's he been?
Combat retains the hybrid system introduced in Final Fantasy VII Remake, blending real-time action with tactical pauses to select abilities and spells. Characters feel distinct in battle, each offering unique skills and roles. The inclusion of new team-based mechanics adds depth to battles, encouraging synergy between party members. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth stands out for its ability to reimagine a beloved story while staying true to its spirit. It expands the world, deepens the combat, and offers players more ways to engage with its systems. For those invested in Final Fantasy VII, it's a thoughtful continuation that respects the original while forging its own path. Dragon Age Inquisition. Dragon Age Inquisition is the RPG that feels like a warm, sprawling fantasy novel you can get lost in for hours, maybe weeks. This one's got everything: a massive, gorgeous world to explore, deep lore to sink your teeth into, and characters you'll want to grab a drink with, or maybe something more, if that's your thing. The story kicks off with you playing as the Inquisitor, someone who, through a wild series of events, becomes the leader of a group trying to save the world from, the usual apocalyptic stuff. But the best part, you're not just some random chosen one, you're chosen one. The character creation here is top notch, and as you make big decisions, it really feels like you're shaping the world. What's crazy about Inquisition is the way it balances grand, save the world stakes with those quieter, personal moments like sitting around the campfire chatting with your crew. Oh, and the cast? Absolute standouts. From the snarky, lovable rogue Varric to the no-nonsense warrior Cassandra, these are the kind of companions you'll think about long after you've put the controller down.
More than me? You are a glorified clerk, a bureaucrat.
Combat-wise, it's flexible. You can go full-on strategic, pausing and planning your moves like a chess master, or hack and slash your way through enemies, having a blast. The game even throws in massive, almost MMO-like zones, so if you're someone who loves collecting herbs, killing dragons, or just soaking up some jaw-dropping views, you'll be in heaven. So yeah, Dragon Age Inquisition is the kind of game where you blink and suddenly 10 hours have gone by. Whether it's the relationships you're building, the world you're exploring, or the decisions you're agonizing over, it's all just so addictive. If you haven't played it yet, clear your schedule. You're going to need the time.
It grows larger with each passing hour.
Dragon's Dogma. Dragon's Dogma is that underrated RPG gem that sneaks up on you, grabs your attention, and before you know it, you're knee-deep in some of the most addictive gameplay loops you'll ever experience. It's not just an RPG, it's an adventure that makes you feel like a badass monster-slaying hero in the truest sense. The setup is simple. You're the Arisen, a chosen warrior tasked with taking down a dragon that literally steals your heart. But what makes Dragon's Dogma so special is how it balances an open world full of danger and discovery with some of the most satisfying combat mechanics in any RPG ever. Seriously, the combat here, unmatched. You can climb massive enemies like a crazed Spider-Man, setting their tails on fire or stabbing them in the face. Each battle feels like a cinematic event, and it never gets old. The class system is where the real addiction kicks in. You've got traditional options like fighter or mage, but then you unlock hybrid classes like the Mystic Knight magic and swordplay, anyone, or the assassin stealth and daggers all day. Switching classes is seamless and encourages experimentation, so you're constantly tweaking your playstyle to see what works best. And then there's the pawn system, a feature so unique it feels ahead of its time. You create a companion that fights alongside you, but here's the twist: your pawn can be shared online with other players. It's like Pokemon, but with battle-hardened warriors instead of cuddly creatures. You'll also recruit pawns made by other players, and the way they adapt to your strategies and learn about the game world is just chef's kiss. The world itself? It's not the biggest, but it's dense with detail. From spooky forests to sprawling plains, every area feels alive and dangerous. Venturing out at night is a whole other beast, literally. The darkness is pitch black, and the monsters that come out will make you think twice about wandering too far without a lantern and some backup. What makes Dragon's Dogma so addictive is how it rewards curiosity and experimentation. You'll set out to tackle one quest only to get distracted by roaming cyclops, a mysterious cave, or just the thrill of jumping off cliffs and seeing how far you can glide. The game gives you the tools to play your way, and it constantly surprises you with its depth. Dragon's Dogma might not have the big name recognition of other RPGs, but trust me, once you get into it, it's hard to put down. Between the incredible combat, the freedom to build your perfect character, and the endlessly replayable world, this game will keep you hooked for hours on end.